Middlekauff! Hey! I'm not going to lie. I'm enjoying having it yelled for me.
See? It just... I don't hate listening to that. I couldn't have the... I'm like Sean Payton. I didn't have the juice in me every week.
3 times a week, 4 times a week, 5 times a week. Now just every little YouTube video we get can be at the beginning of it.
Easy. Just press a button and off and run.
And you can still yell it at us in the crosswalk. What's up, everybody? On YouTube, you are watching this live. Maybe you're watching it after the fact. On the podcast, it's good to have you as well. By the way, I want to mention this. Since our last podcast, which was Saturday night, we've done several videos that have gone out on YouTube only. We talk at length about D'Amico Ryans interviewing with the Raiders. Could the Niners lose him? Niners ticket sales at SoFi Stadium, among other videos that we made. You can go to our YouTube channel, which is, if you're listening to the podcast, in the description of the podcast for some of the YouTube exclusive videos there as well. Just want to make sure.
Go check it out. Haberman Middlekauff page. Go subscribe. Tell your friends. Easy to do. YouTube, pretty big deal. That's where everyone puts their shit now.
We are brought to you in part by MyBookie.ag. Promo code HAM and the number 1. MyBookie.ag HAM1, where you can go bet on the NFL playoffs. You can go bet on the NBA season. You can go bet on golf. Right now, the Farmers Open, which we'll get to in a minute. Super Bowl, all that kind of stuff. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM and the number 1.
Might have thrown $100 on Bryson DeChambeau this week at Torrey Pines. 20-1 guy. 20-1. Remember last year, before he shot, I think, 45 on the back nine, he was leading the U.S. Open on Sunday, headed in the back nine. All-time implosion by Bryson, but West Coast guy, played that course, I'm sure, a million times in his youth. And again, last year, U.S. Open was leading the tournament, heading into the back nine before he shot 45. MyBookie.ag, promo code HAM1. We happen to have a couple large wagers, guy. We started just blue-collar guys betting $300 a game, put $150 each. We upped that after we got hot to $500 a game. We had some high highs, then we had some low lows, and headed into the playoffs with our bets for the first weekend of the playoffs. We had $18 in the account. So if the bets had not gone our way, we would have had to either recoup or just wave the white flag. We recouped, and then we went to 4Gs. So we said, it takes money to make money. You got to have some stones. We have $1,000 on the 49ers money line at plus 150. And as several people have DM'd me, smart move. That number's probably only going to come down as the week goes on. Maybe by the end of the week it goes to plus 135. We also...
Same thing happened last week. We also put
$1,000 on the Kansas City Chiefs, team that has won the AFC 2 times in a row, hosting their 4th straight AFC Championship game at home. Andy, no big deal. -7.
And that line hasn't moved, has it?
Line hasn't moved.
Which surprises me a little bit. I expect
to me, 7 is kind of a sweet spot, though, because the moment you get 6.5, I think then heavy money comes on the Chiefs. The moment you get 7.5, people bet the other side. It's it's kind of like the Niners, right? I think 2.5, everyone would slam probably the Rams, but you get 3.5, it feels like money goes on the Niners, and then it kind of hangs in that spot. Listen, I'm a full believer in the Kansas City Chiefs. I do just, their corners sometimes, the Chiefs' corners can just disappear, but they score 75 points every other game, so it's like they'd win. I'll just keep an eye on Jamar Chase.
9 sacks, they can get to the quarterback. They are not going to miss the opportunities that Ryan Tannehill and the Titans did.
That's true.
With all due respect to Joe Burrow, who is an incredible competitor, John, I mean, they don't belong in this game.
No.
I'm sorry. They don't belong in this game.
They do not. Honey Badger,
now,
head I think's clear because he was tweeting up a storm when I was laying in bed this morning like 6:45, and I just, addicted, just go to Twitter. Honey Badger just peppering tweets like, I'm good. Like, God is good. And just like, this fucking guy, he's clearing. He'll be back.
Not a lot of doubt. Bosa style. By the way, before we go any further, I just have a question. I'll edit this out of the podcast for the stream. How's our mic levels? Somebody the other day said to me that yesterday's stream, you were a little too quiet. I was a little too loud. John, you sound pretty loud to me right now, but I could be wrong about that. So don't touch anything. If anybody, one of you guys on the stream could just, I don't know, maybe you can hit play.
Let me
on a separate.
Mute you and listen.
Okay. He's now not listening to me. He's listening to the YouTube itself. And Kamal says, Mike sounds good. Sounds amazing. Sounds perfect. Levels are good. Okay. Yep, both fine. Sound good. So I'll just make a note here. I'm going to edit all this out of the, make a note to edit that out of the pod, but audio check. Sounds good on YouTube. Volume good.
You sound good to me.
How do you sound? You don't sound too loud?
I think we just sounded at the same levels.
John sounds slightly louder. I thought you were a little hotter than usual just because I had to turn you down here, but...
Do I control any of that?
You do control your mic input, but I don't want you to be too quiet. So if everyone's saying it's good, then let's just let
Turn it down a little.
Okay. All right. I don't want you to be too quiet. So, all right.
Hey, guys.
Thanks for the...
Where's Sean Payton going to go?
Usually Guy is louder. Today it's John. Just barely. All right. So, just a little health check there. Cup check. We should start every show with a cup check.
Wasn't that Matt Cain? Was it Vogelsong or something at the White House?
It was Posey. I thought it was Posey
to Belt.
Was it to Belt? I was going to say like Duffy.
Was it Belt to Posey? I think Brandon Belt was involved. Either the tapped or the nut tapper.
The tappy or the tapper?
Maybe Duffy.
I feel like
Crawford?
Duffy was the recipient. Crawford, I felt like, was laughing.
Posey doesn't quite feel like it when I say it out loud. Belt, Matt Cain definitely could have been involved.
Actually, it feels like Cain was involved because I feel like I saw that video recently as it related to Posey's retirement.
Feel like Cain tapped Belt.
Cain tapped Belt. I feel like Duffy. Well, I don't know. We'll have to check the tape on that. Podcast is also brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings, where you sign up with the code HAM. DraftKings right now in the Haberman Middlekauff DraftKings League. We've got a Farmers Open game going. That link is in the description of this YouTube. That link is in the description of this podcast. Go get in that game. Alert. Golf starts Wednesday this week, so you got to get in it right there. Sign up with the code HAM. Meanwhile, in the football, final four teams battle, John, to Super Bowl 56. You can battle for huge cash prizes with DraftKings.
Yep. Use the promo code HAM, playing daily fantasy. Simple. Just pick your lineup and free shot at $1 million in total prizes. You'll feel the action in conference championship like never before. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable. Best of all, Guy, you can deposit and withdraw cash whenever you want. It is very, very easy. Download the DraftKings app now and use the promo code HAM to play for a free play free for $1 million. That's right. Enter promo code HAM, get a free shot at $1 million in total prizes with your first deposit. Get in the action of the conference championships only at DraftKings, the official daily fantasy partner of the National Football League. Minimum $5 required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
So many great games out there, and as I said, you can get in the Haberman and Middlekauff League on DraftKings. When you get in the league, then you're always going to be the first to know when one of our games goes live. And, in this case right now, that means you've got access to our Farmers Open game, which we need to fill. If it doesn't fill, then we won't play. But it was a late Tuesday night. Someone's like, what about the golf? And I'm like, yeah. And then I made it. I'm like, shit, golf starts Wednesday. Let's go. So anyway, hopefully we can fill that and we'll get football going as well. DraftKings, man. It's a good time.
Let's do it.
It is a good time. Are we here's a question from Michael on the stream. He says, I need some advice. Do I use $600 to try and get a ticket to the NFC Championship game, or do I just throw it all on the Niners plus 155? And you know what the natural question there is, John, which is, does $600 get you into the NFC Championship game?
I think that's the cheapest ticket available right now, which is the most expensive ticket in NFC Championship history. I personally, I'm not a nosebleed guy. I'm not against it. I just sit in the stands as well. Haven't been in a media room in a long time. Retired from that. But the sitting, my takeaway from that. Now, granted, I was a little lower this time. Paid a premium for it. you can't. That fucking stadium, you are so far away at top. I don't think it would be worth it. That'd be my take. I would stay at home and gamble on the game and watch it. Now, if you could get to me just to the third level, which I still think is much higher than $600 in this place, you'd have a decent seat. But to me, going to this game that high, I honestly, I didn't walk up there. I don't know how they miss the screen when you're that high. Because at least Jerry, there's like historically you get.
You're saying
really
how when you sit that high, you're not seeing it. Is that what you mean?
Well, I'm just saying how that screen doesn't get in your way. Like Jerry's thing is in the middle. A lot of the video boards are in the middle or on the sides. That thing circulates around the top end. So and it's low. It's not like at the peak of the arena. It's easy to see from. I was well below it. I don't understand how you miss this. I wonder if there's some sight lines there where, if you're in the left corner, can you see the far right corner? I don't know.
I think in order to be below it with your eye line, you'd have to be back. And in that case, then, if you push back, then you catch some of the seats in front of you if you're back far enough. Because I saw even when we went yesterday to the ticket website and it shows you the view from the seat, you kind of catch the front railing of your section if you're back far enough.
That's what
when you're looking at the field, you might lose a little bit of a corner. Santonio Holmes, you may not see him on the game-winning touchdown. Like this has become a real story this week, which isn't shocking because it's an interesting story, and because the prices are so high. Like I think if Niner fans were buying up all the Packer tickets, that would be interesting, but it would be more of a local story. Like why we got to protect our home turf. But part of this is the prices catch everybody's attention and make it such a story that you can't blame anybody for selling their tickets to this game. And I just think we talked about it on the stream on Monday. There is just the Rams are behind. They just moved to LA. They are behind when it comes to market share in their town. It's not a surprise.
I also just think it's simple economics. I think the two biggest brands on the West Coast are the Los Angeles Lakers and the San Francisco 49ers, and they both have a couple parallels. They dominated for a historically long time, and they were fun when they were dominating. Like part of the Patriots these last 20 years, they have been the villain for like 15 years. When the Lakers, the amount of people I knew that were Laker fans in Northern California growing up was fucking high. And a large reason was because there weren't any other good teams in California, right? But they were fun. It was easy to be a fan of, I don't know, Magic Johnson or Shaquille O'Neal. It was very easy to consume Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Jerry Rice. And then you factor in both fan bases, and I know they're different sports, but let's just speak on the Niners on this one. Their household income of their consumer, not at the top 1%, but I would say the top 20% is probably the highest in the NFL. So, to me, when you look at the prices of the game, what I would recommend to someone, if you have the money to get a decent seat, do it. It could be something you will never forget. But I would have a hard time paying a premium to go sit at the highest level just to experience. But that's me. Some people like being there. You are paying an astronomical amount of money to sit at the top. Now, one mistake I made, and I was told this by our friend Al Guido, who told me when was it? I asked him probably a week before week 17. I said, do you have any advice to buy tickets for this week 18? Because we didn't know who was going to win and if there was going to be juice on the game. The Niners, maybe it was before the Titans game. The Niners could basically lock up their spot because the Texans were next. Who knew what was going to happen with the NFC West? I was like, do you think that I should buy a ticket right now or wait? And he said, always be patient, lead up, prices drop. And I was like, okay. And it made a lot of sense. And I've tried to institute this in my life in general, right? Just be patient. You just bought a house. You benefited from it. I remember you telling me, if you would have got early in some of these houses, you would have regretted it. You just being patient on purchases is the right move. But it's also easy to be like, is this the right move? Is this the right move? You start freaking out. And I bought it a week before, and I could have got the same seats. Again, saved total of $500. So it's not the end of the world, but it still was $500. I did it on Monday of the game week, where if I would have done it and I checked, I remember kind of having a beer, let's see what their tickets are now. And I was like, they're way cheap. Not way cheaper, but they definitely go down Friday, Saturday. But I'm on a couple text chains with people that just I just bought it. I don't want to think about it anymore. But again, some of these people money means a little less to than some. You know, it's a hard balance, right?
Yeah.
Are you good? Like, don't you like you get FOMO? Not FOMO is probably the wrong word, but it's easy to claim patience, and then you're living in it. You're like, you keep thinking about it, right?
Buying tickets all the time. Like every time I've bought tickets that were going to cost me something, there's a constant juggle of, do I get them now? Do I wait? 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 And every time I haven't been in the mode to buy and I've just watch it unfold, you generally have what you're talking about. Now, it's easy to watch tickets, wait till the last day when you don't actually intend to buy them. When you intend to buy them, the worst thing that can happen is that you get to the last day and they're all gone. Right?
Have you checked the amount of tickets that are available in this game are fucking crazy. You can buy a ticket literally anywhere. They're literally all available.
Yeah.
And it might just be as simple as people are putting it up there at astronomical prices and seeing if people will pay. It might just be that basic, right? Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's only Tuesday.
Yeah.
So I think if you go back and look, and the Lakers are a great example of this, the Celtics are a great example of this, the Niners are a great example of this. I think like every 10 years, if you cycle through and in every decade you've got a championship level team, and that's not normal, then it's just going to be, you're going to be a powerhouse. The Niners didn't win a championship. They like, if you look at the Rams in the 80s, they competed. They were in the playoffs a lot more than they weren't. In the 70s too, when they were in LA, they were in the playoffs a lot more than they weren't. They lost a Super Bowl, but they didn't win any, and they certainly didn't win 5 in like whatever the number was, 9 years. They had the Niners, Joe Montana, then they had Jerry Rice, and they transitioned to Steve Young, and then it rolled right into T.O., and then it rolled eventually into Harbaugh. Like every 10 years, if you were a certain age, if you were 8, your parents, your grandparents, it was so easy to pass down. I think it's why like sports in the Northeast are so big, and in the South, places where your grandparents grew up with that team, and then your parents grew up with that team, and then you grew up with that team. We don't really have as much of that in the West. Like the NFL started everywhere around the same time, but baseball didn't. Basketball, there's basketball teams out here that have been playing each other since 1898, like Washington and Oregon or something, but not with the density that you have in the Northeast. And college football, the density they have for championship competition.
You see how cool?
Right?
Did you peek at the environment last night in Lawrence, Kansas for that basketball game?
Well, I texted John Shambi, who called the game this morning, and he's like, he said it was outrageous. He sent me a picture, and I'm like, God, the ceiling looks really low. He's like, yeah, but it's 19,000 people.
I've walked in there empty. It's fucking huge.
19,000. He's like, but the roof is kind of low, and he sent me the photo with nobody in it. It's all wood seats, and it is
badass.
Stuff gets passed down.
Yeah.
And then the kid goes, yep, still badass, right? So if the Niners got passed down to you, you're like, yep, still badass. Who was anybody in LA getting the Rams passed down to them in 1998? I mean, they were gone. Now they were good. 99, 2000, right? They were good. But it's just a different fabric.
Don't you think it's a big? Don't you think it's a bigger deal? And you've spent time there doing basketball and football games. The UCLA and USC thing down there is real because I went there. My kids went there. I would say actually it's the most passionate. Just like it means something to those people. You know, whenever you meet someone that went to UCLA, they're always so proud if their son went there. Cal has a little bit of that too. It's hard to like have multiple generations go to Stanford. But, you know, when people's son, you know, I went to UCLA, my kid went to UCLA, I think it's why both programs can be pretty relevant sports-wise with fan bases, right? They have big fan bases because they're very passionate. They have long lineages of people that have gone there.
But they also won at an incredible level, right?
Well, for sure. But I'm saying it's a double whammy. You got to have people that care. You got to have people that win, and then it gets passed on. It keeps winning. Think about this. Separate from the Eddie generation, which is basically 81 till he got popped in like 98, 99. But I even count to like 02. Once that 81 to like 02. Well, then Harbaugh and Kyle have taken them to 5 NFC championship games. 5 NFC championship games in the last 11 years. And if they win this game, they will go to 3 Super Bowls at that time. Now, they haven't won one, but fuck, it's pretty damn good. You know? 5 NFC championship games. I don't think we hammer that enough for how ugly the separate years have been, because they have. Their highs are just consistently so high in my lifetime. And I grew up, like most people around here, watching the San Francisco 49ers. They just play in the most batshit crazy games ever. They've just consistently done it my whole life. Once I got into the NFL and Harbaugh showed up, I remember they played in this crazy game against us with the Eagles. Dante Whitner mentioned it. It was like, that was the game that kind of sparked us. And then it was, because it was crazy. Like Justin Smith chased down Jeremy Maclin, caused this fumble. Then they went on this fucking run. And then I moved out here, the West Coast, that second year in 12. They go on this crazy run with Kaepernick and Alex. Then the next year, they make another NFC Championship game. Then me and you have been doing this. Kyle's year 2 years ago. And this year is way crazier in 19 because they were watching the game back 3 weeks ago. It was, I mean, they were getting their ass kicked. It was 17-0, and then Jimmy throws the lob pick, and I'm watching it thinking, like, every single human watching this game in the stadium, on their couch, is thinking the Niners are going to lose this game 40-0. And they fucking won!
Well, they all, and that, and then they also, historically, to your point, this year they also play in these games that are two-sided rivalries, right? Like they're playing the Seahawks at the Seahawks. Harbaugh's trying to beat the Seahawks at the Seahawks height.
Yeah.
The Niners of the 90s and early 2000s they're playing Favre.
A little built in, I think both these things, this is added to it. McVay and Kyle have a connection. The Harbaugh thing, the added element was what's your deal? I mean,
yeah,
it added to that.
The Harbaugh, I would even say McVay and Shanahan have a connection, but even before that, it's just McVay took the league by storm. And then Kyle came in off of blowing the Super Bowl to the Patriots.
And I heard
Mike Shanahan's son.
I heard someone say, too, that McVay beat him 3 of 40 times the first 2 years when Kyle's teams weren't good. And remember, they played in that epic, was the first year on Thursday night? Remember, they were going back and forth?
It was like week 3 or week 4, right?
Was it Brian Hoyer, I think, was gunslinging?
It was Hoyer. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not only great games, these are the main characters in this whole thing. Now, that doesn't explain, again, the Rams it takes time. It takes time to build up, because what they're going up against is not the Cowboys fan base, but it is way closer than it is not close.
And the Niners fan base just has a lot of money. I think that's a huge element to it. I believe to my core.
But I agree with you. But I think part of the reason, the volume of it is so many people
with a lot of money, lot of them.
Yeah, with a lot of them have a lot of money. But part of it, there is just so many people that you're gonna have people. You just get fan bases that big. Right? The bigger your fan base, the more people with more money, the larger percentage of your fan base can buy, even if it's a $600 ticket, can buy a $600 ticket.
Well, the Raiders fans always get mad at me when I say this. They always take a lot of pride. Like, we got all the blue collar fans. The Niners have more blue collar fans than you. They have more fans. So when you have more fans, there are more blue collar people in this fucking even the state of California.
More of everything. More of everything.
They have more of them. They have. I think the 49ers in the state of California are the ratio of their fans to the next closest team is such a fucking big difference. It ain't even close. In Northern California, it's like 100-to-1 ratio, And I know A's fans get very, bothered by this. The Giants fans, it's the same thing. Now, the difference is with baseball is the Giants don't transcend Southern California. But that's where the 49ers have a large imprint, a very large imprint. Which makes sense, right? Because for 30 or, for those 20 years, they were the coolest brand before we were even born. You watch that Joe Montana documentary, you're like, God damn, this would have been cool to watch live. I say it, I think about this all the time, guy. Think how cool it would have been to be born. I mean, I'm glad I'm not because I'd be older and closer to death. Now, granted, you never know when you're going to die. I could die tomorrow. But if you were born in like 1972, so you really came into being a sports fan in the 80s, how sweet the 80s was for sports. With baseball, basketball, and football. Like, it's just, you could argue it was about the good as it gets. Magic
and the
Bird,
music.
Everything. Music. I love, exactly. The total pack. Life, society. Cocaine got a little big. You have to avoid that, but.
Yep. STDs.
Yeah, they were storming around, too.
There's highs and lows.
Yeah. You had to avoid the pitfalls, but if you could, stay on the straight and narrow. It's, what. I remember that Bill Buckner bullshit. It's like, I don't remember it.
Somebody has to tell if it's me or John that just got a little funky there. Did I get blurry or did you get blurry? That's the question.
Me.
Okay.
But I don't know how that's possible. I'm plugged in.
Yeah, it happens sometimes. Someone else is on Zoom and whatever. I think I go back to like my 6th birthday. I was living in Omaha, Nebraska, and what did I get for my birthday at the time? I got the Joe Montana helmet, shoulder pads, jersey, pants set, and I got the Jose Canseco. Same thing. They were both really cool then. It's not that much of a math problem to figure out, right? I think if we went and found the biggest, you can find all these random studies using Facebook and whatever, but the biggest fan bases, sports fan bases in America, the Niners are without question, NFL, the Niners are without question top 10, and they're probably top 5, right? I mean, Cowboys, Steelers, Eagles, New York teams.
Niners are bigger than the Eagles.
Yeah, I'm just listening to whatever. I think New England
Packers are massive.
Packers are massive. I think New England is massive. Patriots fans, just Boston, just a high density Northeast area. It's like, so, but they're there. They're there
for sure.
And the Rams, there aren't, and it's not their fault that they're not. I mean, it's somebody's fault, but it's not theirs right now.
I think it's going to be a Niners home game again, and I think there's a chance that it's even worse than last time because there.
Why do you think that?
I just
think prices are higher, the spite of it all.
Well, I mean, it's a bigger game.
Yeah.
It's just big. I mean, it's the NFC Championship game. I think anyone that has the cash that feels FOMO for missing out on Week 18, because what if they lose and they don't make the playoffs? Now it's like they're in. The access, this story has become so big that people on the fence are like, fuck it, I want to go. I think I'm expecting a lot. The sea of red, whatever that means, but
Niner Nation, John.
I also think it's basic economics. If you bought a seat at Stan's Palace, and it's remarkable. If let's just say,
so cool.
Do the math. You bet you pay. I don't know what if you're a season ticket holder, what they charge you for the NFC Championship. I'll just pick an even number. You have a good seat, $1,000. Your ticket normally is like $500 or $400, but for this game it doubles, and you purchase it. Let's say you got 4. So I spent $4,000 on my seats, and let's just hypothetically say it's where I was sitting, like section 221 on like the 30-yard line, and I can 4x that, a seat. So I spent $4,000. I can sell those for $16,000. I make, even let's say I got some money, I'm doing well, I make a couple $100,000. I can just make, and I'm a big fan or whatever, but I can just make $12,000 like that.
I think what you realize really quickly is if you own those tickets and you choose to keep them for yourself.
Do you think that's a fair number? If let's just say I pay $1,000, I might be able to sell it for $4,000. Does that seem like a lot?
No, I think it's probably accurate. And if you choose not to sell them, that means you are choosing to buy them. Like if you choose not to sell them for, let's say, a 4x return, you're not taking money out of your pocket, but you kind of are, right? If you could sell them for $16,000 and you paid $4,000 and you choose not to, I'm just going to use them. That's fine. But you did kind of just pay $16,000 for them then.
Well, exactly. And this goes back to if it's the equivalent of the Niners and a Niner fan could do the same. Well, if I've been a season ticket holder for 30 years, watching my team make the NFC Championship is worth, there's a value there that I don't even think about, right? Or Alabama football or Green Bay Packer football, whatever that number is relative to you. But when you're a Rams fan, how much can it truly mean to you? More than likely, probably not near as much as it would, whatever the equivalent. Alabama can probably do that. Their home game against Auburn next year, if it's to get to the SEC championship game. That guy can probably sell it for 3x. But that experience, like, no, I'm going to fucking watch the Tide and Nick. Just like if the guy I see at the gym every day that tells me he's been a season ticket holder since Kezar, the equivalent, if he could sell his tickets for 3 or 4x, regardless who's buying it, he would rather be at the game.
But it's about who is selling it. And why did you buy it? Did you buy it because you support this team, right? We were watching Sean Payton earlier, and he talked about how their crowd is different. What did he say? We don't have a wine and cheese crowd. And you and I were talking about this after we watched the Steelers' last home game. Like the people that allocate a significant chunk of their yearly budget to buying football tickets. is a different type of fan than the fan that just has the extra cash and it's cool, so they go. When it's not cool, they don't go. And if you have a bunch of hardcore fans buying your season tickets, then you're going to have a better home field advantage. You're going to have more people attend the games when you're not as good. When you have a fan base that maybe is not as big in terms of the hardcore fan, then you're not going to have as many people that just go because their number one priority is not support the team. It's just go to a cool game, which is that's most people. Most people go because it's like, it's fun. I want to be entertained. Doesn't make you a bad fan. But the more people you have whose number one thing is, I need to go support my team, the better your crowd's going to be.
See, I think it depends. You don't think it depends on the city where the mindset, like if you went to a Steeler playoff game, that everyone in there is like, I'm there to watch the Steelers win.
Well, 100%. But I guarantee you they have more quote unquote hardcore fans in their season ticket base.
Oh, yeah.
Their hardcore fan base is just bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're just going to get like the people at the Chiefs game. You telling me there's not some guy who could also sell his ticket for 4X at the Chief game? Not as many people, but there's somebody just who's not even thinking about, I wonder what I could get for these on StubHub.
How many season ticket holders for the Kansas City Chiefs this week do you think it's crossed their mind? Less than 10%?
I mean, I would imagine you kind of think, but this is what you have them for. It's like you go, this is what did Bill, the Bill Parcells quote? This is why you lift all them weights. This is why you go to them preseason games. Yeah. So you can go to this game.
Well, it's why you become a season ticket holder.
Work out 6 days a week and eat veggies so you can have the two double doubles on Friday.
I agree.
This is why you go see your third string quarterback in the preseason, so you can go to this game. But
you can't manipulate love, and the difference. Right. To me, the Chiefs fans. Did you see the viral video of Brittany, the champagne?
I did. Yes.
I do think I don't think she drives people as crazy as I think people maybe assume. She is there. Who she represents, it's weird. Like, he doesn't feel like that at all. But, like, ultimately, she's his wife. Patrick Mahomes means so much to those people. He changed their sports fandom. He turned them into, like, he's like their Magic Johnson or their Joe Montana. Like, once you get that human, if you are a pretty hardcore sports fan, and let's face it, the Chiefs have clearly a strong base, you would take, in sports terms, a bullet for that guy. There has never been a human being in that franchise, to me, that even comes close to equaling the love that he brings and the joy for those people as that guy, right? Did you see the thing that went viral of those guys talking?
Yeah.
Did Jeff?
Of him and Kelsey?
I mean, and then Kelsey tells Tyreek, and then Kelsey gets Patrick. The defender's like not that far away. He should probably be listening. And then he yells Kelsey. That's one of the cooler videos.
Do it.
That was
defender.
Awesome.
I'd be like, oh shit, do what? What's he gonna do?
How cool is the NFL film sometimes?
I mean, I think it's as good as it gets in terms of behind the scenes footage. As good as it gets.
Hey, 97, shouldn't you be listening to what they're saying? You're right there. They're talking right in front of you.
There is a whole part to the game that, like, you just don't have any idea what's going on. And they're talking all the time up until the clock cuts in the quarterback's headset. And then after that, the OC and the run game coordinator and the pass game coordinator and the O-line coach. Meanwhile, the defensive line coach and the defensive coordinator and the guy with the green dot, they're talking. There is so much communication. I mean, it's incredible. It really is. And the more, you hear all these stories like Favre drew it up in the dirt or Steve Young just told him to do that. But it's like, it happens on every play.
I know.
It's just when it happens in the biggest moments, God, that was cool. That video was cool.
That was cool. That
video was really cool.
Those guys are sweet. I feel like good betting on them.
When you
want to put another grand on them?
Parlay it.
I'm just saying, just a
money line.
Just double down on the Chiefs. Just bet more.
I feel very good about them.
You see those guys losing? I don't feel great about the Niners. Like, I mean, I've come around. Like, I feel more confident betting on the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Not that I feel bad about the Niners. To me, it's just they could lose. Like, I can't envision any scenario where the Chiefs lose a game.
Does it add any pressure to the Niners that they've won 6 in a row? Or does that only add pressure to the Rams? Like, is there any pressure on the 49ers in this game? Or is all of the pressure on the Rams? Because I do think when you are in the game, there is just a fundamental amount of pressure on you. You are just playing in this game. When you run through the tunnel, when you line up for the first play of the game, you're just going to have butterflies and wherever it comes from, self-imposed, external, the crowd, the media, but it's just a big-ass moment. There's going to be pressure on you.
We were talking about this before we jumped on, and, they've been saying this before you and I were born, and they'll be saying it after we're dead. An underdog, you're a big underdog in this game, and it is relative to the gambling line, right? When you hear it during the season, right, like the Miami Dolphins are a 17-point underdog against Brady and Belichick. That's real. But wouldn't you say the average NFL game, if it's just like the 2-3 point line, we don't talk that much like they're a big underdog. It's just a game, And during the regular season, road team, home team, you see it all the time, right? For example, like the Jags against the Colts, that final game when they were like a 14-point underdog, we had been talking, that was a huge upset for a reason. But the average, the average game, like week 7 of just two teams, like Colts versus the Niners. This is like, are the Colts a huge underdog? It's just a fucking game, right?
Right.
I do think in the playoffs, and it goes back to what Troy Aikman said, I think it gets to when you're hosting playoff games, even the lines being smaller, a 2-point line, a 3-point line, is like, you should win at home. I think it feels dramatically different. And the Niners, these last 2 weeks, just beat teams on the road as underdogs, and to me, there was like validity behind it. Even though they're clearly, to me, were better than the Packers, but it's fucking hard to go on the road and win. That game the other night was... the chances that this game is as good as that game, to me, feel slim to none. Like, that's probably going to be the highlight of Kyle's, unless he wins a Super Bowl for like a couple years. Like, that was fucking pretty cool. But McVay's at home, guy. Having these home games, did you see the thing that went viral? I saw it on my timeline yesterday, I think, of Aaron Rodgers after he lost the NFC Championship game 2 years ago, and he's like, we need to get these games at Lambeau. And then they've had the games at Lambeau, and they've lost the last 2 years. But there was validity to what he was saying. Like, what he was saying, like, we need the disadvantage here in these games. This isn't the playoffs. Or, this isn't week 6 at Detroit or, week 5 at even if you're playing good teams, right? Even if you're playing Seattle or New England or whatever. To me, the pressure is on Sean McVay. Listen, I think Kyle has not had the pressure on him the last 2 weeks. Once he won that Week 18 game, like you said, there's pressure once the game's going. Like, you don't want to lose. If they would have lost the Dallas game, somehow, it would have felt devastating. But going into that game, the pressure was on the Cowboys, and you felt it from kickoff. Same with the Packers a little bit once the game started playing out, and it was at first it was like, the Packers are free and loose, 7-0. But then when it's 7-0 at halftime, you're like, holy fuck, these guys, and we said it, they will get tight because the elephant in the room is fucking 12. What's he going to do if we lose? To me, it was more than just losing. It's like Aaron Rodgers, right? That, to me, and I would imagine all these Packer fans are like, God, what the fuck? And the moment they blocked the punt, it was like Matt LaFleur represented the entire place. They saw a ghost. Like, how would you not? It's a little different, especially with the home crowd, but the pressure is on Matt Stafford and Sean McVay. They're favored in this game for a reason.
The way they won last week was incredible, but they've now they blew the Niner game. They almost blew that game last week. I think in some ways it helped them to be on the road last week to kind of feel like they're at Tom Brady. I think that released a little pressure for them. If they'd been at home last week and almost blew it, I think it would have maybe felt a little tighter. You get to kind of play the underdog when you go on the road and play Tom Brady, even if we view you as like, you guys can't lose this game. You just went all in on Matthew Stafford.
You see what Odell said? He was like, yeah, I was getting nervous. I got the goat over there when they were coming back.
Did you see the photo somebody posted of Cooper Kupp and Tom Brady? It said it said the GOAT and Tom Brady. But yeah, you're right. You are so aware of the fact that you're playing Tom Brady. You are so aware of the fact that you're playing Tom Brady.
I know you were tweeting this, and a lot of people were saying this. Our buddy Derek Papa, like, they don't know how to close games. Do they, or just the guy fumbled? Now, you can argue, why are they putting him in the game?
I said they don't know how to close games, but it was a follow-up to, I don't think anybody knows how to close games. I think closing games is really hard.
Well, guy, if you're trying to run at the clock and your running back fumbles, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely part of the problem. But that's part of the problem, is their running back fumbles. That's their running back. So, That's their running back.
They could have put in a different running back. Like would Belichick have benched him after the one fumble? Maybe.
Also, you start throwing the ball and it's incomplete. Now we say the same thing about you. But this is what I said when the Niners almost lost at the end of the Dallas game. It's really hard to finish. Finishing games is the hardest part of the game. If you have
McDermott,
it's the hardest part. And Sean's like, if you had told me you got the lead with 13 seconds left, I'd go, I could walk away and let my kid coach the team. Our odds are pretty good.
He said that?
No. I'm saying that.
Oh, that's a pretty good line.
13 seconds. 13 seconds. So it's hard. So I was giving them a hard time, but I just think it's real. Not because I think they are flawed. I think everybody being up that big in a must-win game, you'd rather be up that big than not. But it is kind of complicated because you're going 100 miles an hour and now you kind of try to dial it back. And all it takes is one or two plays from the other team. Because you can start doing the math really quick when it's like, oh, we're up 21. Woo! Niners have had games like this. And then you give up a score and it's 2 scores. And then you go 3 and out and it's only 4 minutes left in the third quarter. You go, holy shit, if they score right here, now it's a 1-score game. And now all the pressure's on us again. So it happens really fast. It happens really, really fast. And I think that's what's weird about the Niners. They shouldn't be able to come back on you like that. They shouldn't. Because they don't have the explosive.
They're not built like that.
But they do make explosive plays. That's what Debo does and Kittle does. And I do think if the Niners get up, it just is going to be a real test for the Rams. Even if the Niners, if the game is kind of 7-0 halftime, whatever.
Last week, week 18 was a little bit of like they had 17-3 looked pretty good big on paper. But then you go, well, the Niners got the ball, and then they score that first drive. So it's a 1 possession game.
Yeah.
And then they forced a punt, and they scored again. Boom, it's tied. So that is the key of like where you get the ball. Because if I would have told you, well, they don't get the ball, the Rams do, and go up 24-3, the swing is a lot, right? When you get the ball, there was a 3 and out by the Niners there would have felt like, God, this game's over. But they scored. So all of a sudden, 17-3 looks like 17-10. That's just a normal NFL score. I think where the Rams really fucked up that first time, they're up 17-0. Jimmy throws that pick that just floats in the air, and they don't punch in another score. Even if they just get a field goal there, it would have felt insurmountable.
Niners dodge bullets, man.
Why I text someone today and I said, I think the Niners are the only teams that can beat the Chiefs. Not because I think the Niners are better than the Chiefs, where I kind of felt that it was much more of a coin flip game 2 years ago, just because it feels like they're riding the football god's wave. Like, that's just that simple. Now, they got players that I think could make plays against the Chiefs, but the Chiefs would be, to me, a 5-point favorite. Like, that should be the line. Like, the line should not be 3. But I could see the Niners beating them just because of, like, this wave of the football gods they're riding. I've never seen anything like it, guy. Never. The Packer game and the Rams game.
Like the 9-7 Giants would probably have felt similar?
Well, I heard Bill Simmons compare this team to that team. And I do think there is some... I think both Giants teams felt like they rode a little bit of a wave. And what did they have? They had just great pass rushers. And when pass rushers can just make some chaos happen. Now, I'd say Eli, that version of Eli is better than this version of Jimmy. But Jimmy has a little bit of pulling shit out of his ass like Eli, it feels like, right?
I think what was... I
Debo
think
and Kittle are better than probably anything they had. They had Plaxico and Steve Smith and Manningham.
Not Josh Jacobs.
The tiptoe burglar, Riddick used to call him. Brandon Jacobs.
Brandon Jacobs. I think what's similar to me about those teams...
Ahmad Bradshaw actually was pretty good.
Well, they had, with a pass rush, the way Eli could play at times, they made some key plays, veteran coach. They just...
Tough as shit, they were.
Tough. But I heard that Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks talking about this on their podcast. Like, there are regular season teams, and then there are teams that are built for the playoffs. And the Titans, and I think we knew this the whole time, stylistically, they're kind of a postseason team, but they're not a built for the playoffs team, not with Tannehill. They don't have enough else to elevate him, and maybe part of that is play calling, right? And obviously, A.J. Brown it turned out, even though he was a no-show for most of that game, all of a sudden, he almost flipped that game and won it for him.
I mean, their best player was coming off. He has plates at his foot.
It's fair. I don't think they're a post. I mean, they have postseason qualities, but I think Tannehill keeps them from being a postseason team. And maybe offensive coaching does. Like the Niners do have some qualities that make them, when you look at their stars, like we were talking about this, when you say, okay, Niners have the football, let's list off the just top tier, all pro level stars on the field in that given moment in time. It's Debo, it's Kittle, it's Trent Williams, it's Aaron Donald, it's Jalen Ramsey. I mean, it's an impressive list of dudes that belong in the VIP.
You'd say three of those guys are first ballot Hall of Famers right now, right? Donald, Von Miller, and Trent Williams are going to the Hall of Fame, first ballot.
Yeah.
And then you got, Jalen, Debo, Kittle, like they're building resumes,
right?
Headed that way. It's add up the money.
I say all that just to say when you could put them up against any playoff team and they look like they belong. They just look like they belong. And the pass rush is fantastic, and Eric Armstead, like all of these things. But I do think, look, as much as there is pressure on the Rams, let's say you're the Niners and you're up 14-7 at the end of the third quarter. There's a ton of pressure on you too.
Once the game happens,
there is a ton of pressure on you as well. If you're Jimmy, if you're Kyle, like how do you call that game up a score? Well, knowing they can hit you at any moment.
One thing both these two coaches are going to have for the next several years, and maybe that one of them gets it done this year, is they're going to be called the best coaches without the Super Bowl. And that is something that when I went to work for Andy Reid, like that just kind of hung over him. It really did. I mean, I remember when. You
think it hung over him, like personally?
I just think it just follows his team. It just follows him, right? I'm not saying he thinks about it a lot, but it's just the number one conversation. It's impossible to avoid, and you think about it like in the playoff games or not necessarily the big regular season games because he wins those just like these guys do, but in these playoff games because he's viewed as a really good coach. And, I think by the time I had been around him, he had been to all those championship games. These guys were just in championship game number 2. But I think like him, it's clear how good they are. And, I think it happens in golf with majors. It probably happens less in baseball. It's a little more random. Basketball, a little bit, right, until you win the championship. It is real, and it's going to be real. And I would say Kyle more than Sean because, fair or not, and I think it is unfair, he does bear the brunt of the fucking narrative of the Super Bowl against the Patriots, right, as an assistant. So, he's had now 2 Super Bowls in which people view as he lost, right, and he had late leads, even though he was only the head coach of 1. And like you said, if he loses a game to McVay where he has the loss, even like we said, he's the underdog going in, it would just continue to snowball into this story surrounding him more. Like it feels like Sean doesn't battle that as much as Kyle does, right?
Yeah, do you think Kyle? But I don't feel like Kyle battles it at this point in time.
I'm not saying him individually. I'm just saying that is the number one conversation that everyone outside of Kyle Shanahan has about the guy, or will kind of moving forward if he has a devastating loss in one of these next 2 games, right? That he has a lead.
I think if it happens, especially in the Super Bowl, if he loses a game this week, I don't think it's that conversation.
I'm not saying loses. I'm saying loses a game where he had the lead late, like your scenario.
Yeah, but to me, it's not that he loses. That's the story. It's that the story would be he blows leads, specifically blows leads. Because Andy went to 4 straight conference championships in Philly.
But you know what Andy's narrative was? Why he couldn't win the big game? Can't manage the end of halves. Cannot manage games. Yeah. And that was, like I said, I never heard Andy. Now, it's crazy. I talk to him now that I did sometimes when I was in the office. But it's not like he was going around like, how do I figure this out? Right? It's not like Kyle's going around like, how do I not fuck up a lead? But that's what we would talk about. His thing's the leads. Andy's was the time management. Then he gets Patrick Mahomes. Well, now granted, he just had 3 timeouts at the end of the game with 13 seconds. Andy's like, what the fuck? Where's everyone at now?
Yeah, he won a championship.
But you notice?
He won a championship.
Don't you feel maybe he's got better players? He's got timeouts now at the end of the game all the time.
Well, I do think we can get to keys to this game another day, but that's going to be the key. And part of that is not having players on the field that know how to manage the game.
None of these mid second quarter.
No, this is the Rodgers. You do it by the hip. You go like,
yeah.
Rodgers loves the fuck it. But Rodgers lets everyone else stay in their stance for another 4 seconds as he walks away, like
because he doesn't say anything.
Oh, linemen are like, we leaving? Oh yeah, Aaron already started the car.
Now some of it, and this is like the chicken or the egg, right? Sometimes you just have dumber players out there. Like you watch the Chiefs, you're like, I wonder why Andy has more timeouts. Well, do you notice Kelsey Hill and his three best players know every fucking thing that's going on?
Well, that's what I just said. That's what I'm saying. It's like you young quarterbacks, smart players, people that know how to line up, but people who know how to line each other up. This is where we go back to that play with Juszczyk and Brandon Ayuk in the last Rams game. Remember where Juszczyk moved Ayuk right before the snap because he was in the wrong place?
That was a Haberman fine. That was a good one.
But that's you need like quote unquote coaches on the field.
Who was screaming? Defense. Who was screaming? Kittle, was that the last game? The Packer game?
That was Jimmy.
Yeah, Kittle go. Who has there ever been a team that started a Super Bowl where they took a delay a game or had an offsides?
The Niners it wasn't a delay a game. It was a
illegal formation.
Illegal formation, and they nailed the play too.
But that was.
You know what's funny?
Was it Harbaugh or was Kaepernick just sometimes
or both of them?
Yeah.
Right? Neither one of them noticed it. And Jim is not – I would say one of Jim's flaws, having watched Jim a long time, sometimes his teams feel a little Arians-y, right? Not the most buttoned-down operation. Did you see the clip? I saw it today. You've seen it before of the trick play McDaniel and Shanahan ran with Johnny Manziel. Remember when did you see it again today on the internet?
How different did Mike McDaniel look back then?
So different. Didn't wear glasses. Maybe
yeah.
Did he have? I bet he just couldn't. He probably is a guy like who didn't just waited to get glasses forever. Was always so smart.
Was he a little chubbier then?
I don't know. It was hard to tell. Kyle was definitely
skinnier.
Yeah, skinnier, but he's still skinny. But you know what's funny about the play is for people who didn't see it, it's a trick play with Manziel. He comes to the sideline, but he's still in the field of play, and they run a trick play to him. But they had like an illegal formation. One of their running backs was in the wrong place or was still moving at the snap. It didn't work.
What were they trying to act like? They were going to bench Manziel for Hoyer, so they were going to scream at him? Was that what they were doing?
Yeah, they like brought him to the sideline, but they stopped him he didn't come off of the field, obviously.
He was still the 11th guy on the field.
But the part of it that's so great is he had his back to the play, and Kyle is the one that told him, like, go, run. Like the ball was just stabbed. Now run.
How you know the rules way better than I. Doesn't he have to get set on the line of scrimmage? Like, how can he just be standing there?
I think he can be off the line of scrimmage as long as you have enough guys on the line of scrimmage. The substitution rule is that if you enter if you come into the game, you have to come inside the numbers if you're going to line out outside the numbers.
So as long as he was back behind the line of scrimmage and they had whatever on the strong side, everyone on the line, they would be good.
As long as he had the right number and he wasn't.
That's why you can bring a guy in motion around you. He can be moving if everyone's on.
Yeah, I guess as long as you had the left tackle covered.
Yeah,
right.
So you're whatever the strong side is, which would have to be on the opposite side of probably where Johnny was, right? Or does it matter? You could be on either side if the left tackle.
I don't think it necessarily matters. Yeah.
So you have to have 3 people on the line of scrimmage left of the center. Is that it?
You've got to have 1, 2. Yeah.
Is that just a random kind of rule?
Well, it's just a total
rules
number.
are there in football that Belichick knows them all.
See, I don't even. I can't even. Like I'm not explaining it. I might not even fully understand what you're saying.
But wouldn't you say a
but
huge part of being a great play designer is you would have to know the rules
and the loopholes in them, right?
Yeah.
Like when Trent Williams did this, you're like, oh shit, because that means eligible.
It's like when your tax attorney goes, just wrote out that $10,000, woo! It's like, yeah, baby.
I didn't know the rule, but I'm glad you do. But these guys, now that Sean Payton is retiring for the time being, Green Bay's got some things to figure out. Tampa's got some things to figure out. Dallas got some things to figure out. Arizona got some things to figure out. Philly's got some things to figure out. Those are the other playoff teams this year in the NFC. New Orleans has some things to figure out. Minnesota has some things to figure out. Washington and Seattle have things to figure out. Atlanta has things to figure out. So does Chicago. So does Carolina. So do the New York Giants. And so do the Detroit Lions. That's the NFC. Now, you could argue, well, the Niners have something to figure out a quarterback. True. But these guys are just are Kyle and McVay just going to meet in the NFC Championship? Like, I don't know. What would you say? How many next years?
Well, it sure feels like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are going to play each other a lot in the playoffs, and these two guys have a huge leg up in the NFC because when you look at, to me, Sean Payton was easily one of the elite coaches he's accomplished more than either one of these guys. And let's face it, he's had some epic games with both of them. Didn't he play one of them in an NFC Championship game where, call went against his way to help the Rams? I remember him playing.
Call went against his way against the Niners as well. There probably should have been an Ahmad Brooks pass interference, remember, in New Orleans.
And wouldn't you say in Kyle's tenure, probably the most exciting regular season game he's played in beside the Rams was against Sean Payton in New Orleans, 2 years ago in 2019.
Yep.
Well, I would say the other two.
Kyle has played in some just insane games.
The other two big-time coaches are 70 years old, Pete Carroll and Bruce Arians. Now those guys are good, and Carroll kicks Kyle's ass, and Bruce Arians, they haven't played yet the last couple of years with Brady, it'd be a hard fucking game. Like, it'd be a coin flip, whatever. The Tampa could easily win. So as long as those two guys are there, they're big time. But besides, what guy under 70 is keeping these? Some of those teams you listed, guys, don't even have coaches. Minnesota, New York, Chicago hasn't hired a coach yet.
New Orleans?
The Saints, it feels like the Panthers are going to fire that guy. They already hate each other. And again, back to the two old guys, what's the over-under on Pete Carroll and Bruce Arians coaching? 2.5 years?
It feels like Bruce. Did you see Bruce said he might take back play calling duties if
Leftwich leaves?
If Leftwich leaves. But, yeah, even if Tom retires, they got some work. They got to find a quarterback.
They'd have some problems. And then you would say the Cowboys aren't going away because they have so much talent, but massive coaching advantage.
And Sean Payton could be coaching them in a year, right?
Yeah, you just got to hope he goes to the AFC.
But I also think if Sean Payton also could do TV for $17 million and find out it's a good lifestyle and not come back. Because he's doing TV. Well, we'll get to Sean Payton.
Couldn't you see him doing it for like 3 years and coming back? It's not a guarantee one.
No, I think it's hard to just do one.
Well, once he gets the cash and kind of relaxes and gets.
But Jerry could always be like, "Hey, man, look, I'm 79 or whatever, 73 overall Jerry is."
The one thing though is when you're a coach, it's an addiction that you don't shake. And he mentioned it so to me, if he comes back in the NFC, that's a huge backswing. But I text you this today. If I was Jed and I was Stan, and both these guys got big extensions, I would offer them both 10-year contracts at fucking $20 million a year. Or whatever that would get them to sign the contract.
Oh.
What is that?
$20 million a year?
Well, why the fuck who cares? It's a line item.
Yeah, but you don't pay what you don't pay what you don't have to pay. But
when you realize the competition, I got to play Dan Campbell and whoever the fuck the Bears are going to hire, and David Tepper and his idiot Matt Rule who belongs at Baylor. You just canvas the landscape. You have such a competitive advantage. Such a competitive advantage. Now, if Carroll and Arians were 60, it'd be a problem, but they're 70. They're old. They're really old.
But beyond old, their teams are not. I think I like Bruce Arians, but he is not in terms of running a full operation. I do not believe he is as good as McVay or Shanahan.
I would agree, but if he has a good team and they played either one in the playoffs, they can easily win.
That's true.
That's to me where it's like, if I play Matt Rule, I'm sending the Uber to pick up Matt Rule so I can kick the shit out of him. I would not feel good, and I don't think any Niner fan would, or I don't know if the Rams fans exist. Sean McVay wouldn't feel good if he plays Pete Carroll or he plays Bruce Arians in a playoff game, meaning they have a good team, right? Like Sean McVay, they had the competitive fear of playing that squad going into that game as they
and they would have if substitute Tom Brady with a top 15. If Kirk Cousins was Bruce's quarterback, you'd still be alarmed.
Yeah, to me, like I just can't. All these other guys, I can't put in the crew. Like, I like Nick Sirianni. He doesn't have a quarterback that can throw, and his defensive coordinator, while everyone thinks he's the next great head coach, defense is terrible. So you just is Nick Sirianni the only guy that you're like, well, this guy could eventually be a pretty good coach? I mean, he had an impressive year, but. Like, you just canvas the landscape. it's pretty nuts how shitty the NFC is relative to the AFC. Like, imagine if you're just like the Ravens. You're like, fuck, this is... Or even like Tomlin. Like, how do we just compete again?
Yeah.
At the highest level, not just...
That's
NFC is a pretty good spot to just get to 9 wins for some of these teams.
That's where Sean, it's pretty alarming what the situation was in New Orleans. He took a look at the NFC, at his division, right? He said it. Like, looking at the division, I'm thinking like, look at the division. What are you talking about looking at the division?
Oh, did he not try to act like it's wide open for our guys? Or was he trying to act like it's hard?
I thought he was acting like it's hard. Are you saying he was kind of acting like they can bounce back real fast?
That's what I thought he meant. Like, look at the division, put in Dennis Allen, who I think would be good, and we'll just hit the ground running.
You might be right about that. And it's not that crazy. You say it about an individual team. You go look at this team's individual situation, but then you just look around. That's where the NFC West is so unique. Even without an elite head coach, Arizona, we'll see how Kyler's next 2 and 3 and 4 years play out. But they've got enough at quarterback to scare you in a given year. But these two guys, they are what Harbaugh, because he just doesn't have the staying power, and Pete Carroll maybe could have been. The difference is both of these guys have their finger on the most important button, right? Pete and Jim were partly about the operation. Kyle and Sean McVay also are. But if you said you're going to lose all your coaches, you got to start from scratch, just you, I still think they'd be pretty good because they are pretty good.
Yeah.
Right. Ultimately, Jim, Pete, but these are the offensive. These two guys have the number one skill you want in any coach. The most important skill, if you can get it, which is the ability to elevate a team without a great quarterback. They both went to the Super Bowl with guys that one of them already replaced and the other one is about to replace.
Well, doesn't it feel like
with Goff and Garoppolo?
Wouldn't it be one of the biggest stories? I mean, obviously we talk about it, but just in football, if it was ever announced in the foreseeable future that Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan are going to give up play calling duties, does that feel like that feels impossible to happen, doesn't it? In the foreseeable future,
I mean, it would take a stroke. Like, why would they do that?
They wouldn't. They
don't want to do it. The person paying them doesn't want them to do it. What would they do with their time? It'd be like Kyle's like, I'm giving up play calling duties and I'm going to run leads. Okay,
you know who's been calling plays the whole time, and it wears you out. Is the guy that just retired,
Sean Payton? Yeah,
yeah.
Well, didn't you say that Kyle said after the Packer game he liked the block punt touchdown because it meant he didn't have to call plays?
Yeah. I think that was more alluding to, like, I don't fucking know if we can get in, right?
Yeah. That's where Andy's like, I do.
Andy been like, I'll go special from the 5-yard line. Go deep.
I'll call the play, but whatever you guys want to do once you're out there is cool too.
Yeah, just go deep, guys.
Another genius call by me, Andy Reid.
I think it's easier. Sean Payton mentioned this, and I think it's way easier for Andy to, like, let the guys cook once he trusts them. I bet Kyle and Sean talk differently because I was watching Sean thinking it's going to be interesting one day to see Kyle when he's like 52 years old, right? Or Sean McVay when he's 44 years old. Like, they'll talk like back in my day, but they were so young and they still will be young, right? Andy, it's been so easy for him to hand over the reins because of his the trust level in his star player, starting with his quarterback and the 2-star, skill guys. I would imagine it's never even been close any guy he's ever had. And he's had great players, he's had great teams, but this level of innate trust, Kyle hasn't quite. I think Kyle's finding that in Deebo Samuel and in George Kittle. Like he will at the biggest times, and he's done this consistently, dial up plays for those guys. His trust level as a play caller is highest in the history of his life with those guys. Just like Sean McVay, I think, has found that in Cooper Kupp. Like, when all else fails, I'm going to 10 if I'm Sean McVay. When all else fails, I'm going to 19 or 85. I'm calling that play. And, I mean, Andy, when all else fails, it's like Patrick just knows to do that now, right? And he can just, if you notice in that clip, Andy wasn't talking to anybody. He was just letting those guys be, right? I mean, Kelsey was talking to him. They were about to go back on the field with 13 seconds left. There's a level of trust you get, probably happens when you're a parent, right? Once your kid's like 28, it doesn't happen when they're 14. It builds up over time, and you just know.
I think it's the result. That is what cannot be faked. And you can only gain through experience, and you can't rush you can't rush the experience.
Kyle doesn't have that with Jimmy, obviously, right?
No, but Kyle does have the experience of knowing the best way to try and manage him. But you're right. No, he does not have that trust. And McVay didn't have that trust with Goff. And maybe one day he'll have it with Stafford. He clearly trusts him more. But, Andy and Patrick Mahomes have been through it together and both come out on the other side, and each one has caught the other during a trust fall. Like they
win and losses, right?
Win and losses. And part of it is once you've won, I think it just takes a little bit of the burden off of you. Once you've won the championship, now you can kind of, really explore the space a little bit more. You're freer.
But
You're
so
freer.
Isn't that what I was saying a little bit about, like, they don't talk about it like we all talk about it, but they do feel once Kyle or Sean eventually wins a championship, would they be as tight on the sideline in some of these games, or is it just a little looser?
I don't know. I mean, you think about
Sean looked pretty tight on Sunday, didn't he?
McVay looked very aged. Yes, McVay looked tight.
He looked like he was watching. This is going to be the worst loss of my life.
Yes.
Right?
He was watching a horrible, horrible movie. That's where Sean Payton won one championship as a head coach, kicked an onside kick in it, and not at the end of the game, right? In the Super Bowl. Like, I do think Kyle kind of calls games already as if he's won it. Like, I think I think when he calls games, he's pretty loose. I think the areas where show up as tight, it has to do with Garoppolo. It doesn't have to do with Kyle. I think growing up in the game and being Mike's son has made him that.
I don't know if I'd totally agree. I think sometimes when they let it loose, they have no that's their only option. If they're down 7 with a minute left, no timeouts, like that Rams drive. I think sometimes do they always? That's where I think Andy's changed a lot. Once he got Patrick, he's just much more fuck it, pedal the metal, go kill shots, and it I'd say 99% of the time it's worked for them. Kyle, a couple times, like when you're up, 17-7. And part of this might be Jimmy, but part of it is like he still has something to lose. I don't feel like he's just letting it loose always. I think you do that more when you're winning than when you're losing because you have no shot. That's your only option when you're losing. It's can you play? And that's where Sean Payton and Andy, I would say, Sean Payton for the last decade and Andy for these last 3 years. When you watch his team and they're up 20-3. It doesn't look any different if they're down 20-3, right? And Kyle's teams do look a little different sometimes.
But I think it's because he has to manage every play. He has to manage it. Steve Kerr, like, what's the best play? Give the ball to Steph. You don't have to manage every moment the way that I think Shanahan does and the way McVay did. Yeah, but I also think to use Peyton as an example, like, and this is, I think, partly your point, is like they will only get better, and they're so young. They will only get better with time, these two guys, because they've already done enough. Now, neither's won a championship, but they've done enough to get themselves so much leeway with their owners, with their fan bases, with their organizations, with their players, right? And I think that's important, is to early on kind of create a lot of runway for you. So you're not in win or get fired year by year 2. And both those guys have now established themselves that way. And they're going to be part of this game specifically, like the tightness that you'll feel in this game is they're going to be doing it against each other. And while they're doing it, kind of knowing, like, I am facing the best right now, right? And, we'll see. I mean, whoever wins this game will be lucky if they end up facing Zach Taylor and not Andy Reid in the Super Bowl.
Well, Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan is guaranteed to go to their second Super Bowl. Like, Sean Payton is a massive story today. He went to one Super Bowl. Now, he won it, but he's been trying to get back there for a decade and had some great teams. Went to one. One of these two guys is going to be representing the NFC for the second time in either 3 or 4 years. That's a pretty remarkable accomplishment, right, in itself. And I think that's where sometimes, like, I know in golf, it's like you only get credit for your winning. But, like, if the top fives, I was on this texting with someone about, like, Ernie Els, and you just look at all his top fives in his career. He won 4 majors. The guy top fived in U.S. Opens and British Opens, I think, like a combined 12 times. You don't get as much credit for that, but it's really a remarkable accomplishment. It's why once you win it and you have all these pelts on the wall, it's why Andy gets so much credit now for all those championship games, right? Because he has the Super Bowl. Well, but if you don't get the Super Bowl, you're just kind of known as the guy that just top fives in a lot of majors or gets a lot of Super Bowls. So this back to the pressure thing. Whoever wins this game and ups their level of hype, because the hype machine on both of them is really high. But the winning, we'll talk about the second Super Bowl, they're going to have the opportunity to kind of like change the course of their life, right? At a very one at 42 or one at 36 years old, because they'll be talked about completely different for the next 5 years, and both of them will be considered in the quote-unquote coaching draft that never happens as top 5 locks moving forward, right?
Yeah, win or lose.
Win or lose the Super Bowl. But
that's what this year has done for Kyle. I think.
You think Sean had already
Sean's already there because he this year helped him.
He won a playoff game last year.
Good. Yeah, and with Goff, and I jokingly after the game, after the Packer game, tweeted like lifetime contract for Kyle, because I'm not giving anybody a lifetime contract, right? But I had a few people, multiple people actually reply like, "Let me see him in the Super Bowl first." I'm like, okay.
Well, you looked at me when I was crazy when I said 10 for 20.
Well, $20 million a year is just so far above what you'd have to pay somebody if you gave him a 10-year contract right now.
Well, Sean Payton's getting $17 million. Pete Carroll's like $17 million. Belichick's like 25. Yeah, you're right. I'm just saying, 10 for 15.
I'm giving you the security of 10 years. I don't have to pay you $20 million a year right now. That's why I looked like
10 for 15.
Sure, but again, why would I go to 10 when I can pay you 6? I just re-up you every 3 years, every 6-year contract, right?
But you just said lifetime contract. Don't we want to give you guys?
My point is, you just know you've got a guy, so you can give him a lifetime contract. You don't have to. I wasn't really going to give him one, but the idea that like he has to prove something to me in the Super Bowl this year, like I'm pretty confident, even if he were to lose a lead in the fourth quarter, I've seen him win enough of these games at this point. He's won a lot of them too, right? Games that he had the lead, games he didn't have the lead, comebacks with Jimmy Garoppolo. Like I've seen the proof. But ultimately, they're putting all the work in so they can win the trophy. Kyle's been so close. So close. Sean's been so close. That's where I think so much of the pressure on the two of them is probably also self-imposed. Like they're clearly both grinders. And they have rivalry now with one another in the division.
What's worse, losing a Super Bowl where your defense only allows 13 points, losing a Super Bowl where you have a 10-point lead heading in the fourth quarter?
Losing a Super Bowl with a 10-point lead.
Yeah. Because the Rams it never felt like they were going to win that game, right? Like looking back, I remember sitting on the couch thinking it was a boring game.
Nope.
Like,
somehow Jared Goff, this is not the guy we watched all year.
Niners had a 10-point lead.
Yeah. Now, both of them lost to
10.
Belichick and Brady, and the other one lost to Mahomes and Reed.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I do think it matters who you lose to, for sure. Like you can hold your head high.
Yeah. Or as high as you could hold it.
Yeah, like, I mean, Rocco gets to tell his friends till the day he dies, like, yeah, Tiger hit the fucking 2 putts. What was I going to do, right?
It was just legendary.
Yeah. It's like
one of the most legendary moments. That's what it took to beat me.
Who beat you? Oh, Bill and Brady on their last Super Bowl ever together. They're 6th. Kind of knew what they were doing. Hit Gronk. They hit this pass from this guy, Rob Gronkowski. Yeah, you've heard of him? Best tight end ever. Good job, though, Wade Phillips. You're fired.
Yeah, and, we thought maybe he was crazy at the time, but he turned out he wasn't. John, before we go any further, let's tell the people about Manscaped. Manscaped.com. Use the promo code HAM for free shipping and 20% off.
Manscaped.com, promo code HAM. The Weed Whacker, love it. Great nose trimmer. The Lawnmower 4.0. What do you say? Best ball trimmer in the history of ball trimmers? Not even a close second, probably?
We'd have to get Babe Ruth and Mickey Mantle in here to tell us, but as far as we go back in time, yes.
The 3.0 and 2.0 were good, but I'd say the 4.0, and we've had them all sent to us, is tough to beat. The LED light, the USB charging system, how quiet it is. It's fantastic.
Yeah. The wireless charging system. I mean, that's the part that, I think takes it to the next level. There's just something feels very professional about, boop, charge, boop, pulled it off. Don't have to plug it in. Don't have to find the cord. It is where it is. You charge it. It makes it so easy. Then the worst is when you need it, right? And then you realize you didn't charge it last time. But Manscaped kind of protects you against that. Join over 2 million men worldwide who have trusted Manscaped. 20% off and free shipping with the code HAM. It is numero uno. I mean, adoption worldwide. It doesn't get any better. I am a big fan of the Weed Whacker, John, which is actually, you don't quite think of it this way, but it's for the nose hairs. I get a lot of them. And by keeping them close, you keep yourself from plucking at them, which is bad news. The 4.0 has the ceramic blade with the skin-safe technology. So many great options. I'm looking at a bunch of them.
When we're older, someone would be like, describe 2022 to me. I'd be like, well, everyone had a laptop, an iPad, an iPhone, and a lawnmower 4.0. That's what it is. Manscaped.com, promo code HAM. Every single human I know has a lawnmower 4.0, either that they've used our promo code. See a lot of people in the chat saying right now they used theirs recently. Promo code HAM, baby.
Lincho says, get the toner. Yeah, the toner. I mean, there are so many great products at Manscaped. The crop mop, the reviver. I mean, it's all there.
Oh.
Manscaped.com, promo code HAM. Podcast is also brought to you by Truebill. Truebill.com/ham. Truebill.com/ham. Don't fall for subscription scams. Get Truebill.com/ham.
Yeah, it's really easy to use. Go to Truebill.com/ham. Do you know the guy, on average, the average person would save up to $720 if they use Truebill? Because we go to these people, right, or these apps and these streaming services. We just sign up for the free month, and then we forget about it because we do 7 million of them. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, you realize I don't do this enough. Check my credit card statement. And sometimes you look, you're like,
you're not balancing your checkbook?
What? No, that was a Joan Middlekauff move. She had the thing out. She was like, oh,
I'll be at the dining room table balancing my checkbook if you need me.
You'd have to pay me to do that. And I don't even think I wouldn't even know how. But that's where Truebill comes up. They save the average person $720. Some people, Guy, would be well over $1,000 a year in things you're not using. Do you know what I found a couple weeks ago? Hulu. I do not watch Hulu TV, but I had signed up, I think, during the peak Corona, like mid-2020, because someone's like, oh, they got a couple cool shows. Check them out. And I did one of those free months, and then I completely forgot. I have not touched my Hulu app on my televisions in a year and a half, yet I've been getting charged, $10.99 for who knows how long. Truebill would have caught that.
I'll tell you the other one Truebill caught. I signed up for, I wanted to watch the George Harrison documentary like a month ago, but it's been out for 10 years. So it's not just like available everywhere. It's on an Amazon service. It was like not Quibi, but something like that had a 7-day trial. I was like, cool, this is the only thing here I want to watch. You scroll through, there's nothing else I want to see. I'll watch that. Forgot about it. Whoop, whoop. 1 month popped up, got charged. It was $8, whatever, but it adds up. And that's the smart thing. It's like you make it $8 and then no one really pays too close attention to it. If it was $100, I'd be noticing, right? Well, $8. I got my $8 back. Thank you, Truebill.com. And it's not just this month's $8. It's next month's and the months after that and the months after that. Truebill.com/ham. Don't let it happen to you.
Nope. Was the doc any good?
It was very good. There were some times where it's like, all right, I can only hear the sitar music for like 8 minutes. But
did you sign up for Apple TV to get the Beatles documentary?
I signed up for Disney Plus to get the Beatles documentary.
Oh, that's where it is.
And that one has
free trial.
That one has to get canceled here in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Have you watched it?
I did.
Is it good?
It is. I really liked it. I'm a big Beatles fan. I could see how it would drag on for people if they're not like really into the Beatles.
It's like 10 hours long, right?
Yeah, it's quite long. I think one of them is like 3 hours and 50 minutes. And it's just them sitting around. So, I mean, if someone doesn't love it, I don't hold it against them, but I liked it. Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate the greatness. I'm not the biggest Beatles guy, though I think Let It Be is probably one of my top 10 songs ever. I've seen some clips from it that look pretty unreal of just them like working through songs.
Yeah.
What was it? The one song where he just kind of riffs because they needed it. What was the song? Get Back. And he's like humming, and they just fucking figure it out, and they just have a song. It was like, that'd be like watching Walsh and Montana on like a Wednesday playing Parcells. I saw some people are like, I don't think people realize how incredible this is. I was like, yeah, that is pretty awesome.
Yeah, but that's not most of the show. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff like that, but that's probably one of the
What about
highlights.
when they do the concert on the roof?
So I'd always heard about the concert on the roof. I didn't quite realize how honestly kind of underwhelming the concert on the roof is. I thought it was like a full-on concert. People could see them. It's them recording. It's like very haphazard, kind of last-minute planned. It goes for like 40 minutes, but they're playing the same songs over and over again. People can't really see them, or they don't even necessarily know who's up there from the street. There's like some people on some other rooftops. It's not exactly the grand farewell that I always kind of pictured in my mind. Well, like a rooftop concert, they just appeared and everyone was in the streets like, yeah.
I saw I saw one clip, like there's like a girl that's like, who's that? I can't do an accent, but the guy's like, oh, it's the Beatles. You know?
Like, and everyone's like, oh, cool. But then people complain, sound ordinance, they come and shut them down.
Does it show them like smoking weed or drinking or anything? Like doing stuff like that?
I mean, they're smoking a lot of cigarettes and they have like some drinks in there, but it's not like, it's just, the footage is just them in the recording studio. They're not like
Yoko involved in the doc?
Yoko's hanging out, going through, honestly, might be balancing her checkbook, just like going through mail.
They ever scream at her or anything?
No.
So it was like passive aggressive hate toward her while they were around.
It wasn't even while they were around. There wasn't really any passive aggressive. One person mentioned something, but it was pretty low key. She wasn't. Yeah, it was pretty low key. All right. Where are my notes? Oh, do I have this up here? Somebody tweeted this to me the other day, and you and I were talking about this. This is from Robert. He said, underrated aspect. This was a couple days ago. Underrated aspect of the Niners win in Green Bay, the draft position got worse. The first rounder they traded for Lance is now essentially a high second. It's like an extra win from the weekend. And by the way, the second round pick, was it a second they gave up, is now kind of like a third. So
who'd they give a second?
I'm sorry, a third. They gave up a third.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a fourth. Pretty good. Yeah, I would say so. There was a point in time where you thought you were sending the Dolphins like the 12th overall pick, which they were trending towards having the 10th or 11th or 12th pick again.
Well, really, is there a game that represents two teams that have less high-end draft capital in the foreseeable future?
Yeah.
And
built differently, but arrived kind of at the same place.
Yeah, and did it for one went for a rookie quarterback, the other one for established veteran. But when you look, you are guaranteed, if the Niners were to lose this game, they have the worst record of the four teams remaining. Just do the math. 29, 30, 31, 32. Their pick would be 29. If I told you at the beginning of the season, just even if you didn't have Trey Lance or whatever, would you trade pick 29 to be the next year's 29 to be in the NFC Championship game or AFC Championship game? If you ask all 32 teams, what would they all say?
Yes.
In a fucking heartbeat. So when you make a trade like that, do you know the most devastating part about Chicago Bears season? Is they had to fire their coach, they had to fire their general manager. They traded 2 first-round picks, right? They trade up, they use the pick on Justin Fields. They have to trade next year's one to get Justin Fields as well. Well, do you know what happens? Is the Giants now have pick 7. And whether the draft, like last year's draft was viewed as elite, right? All the non-quarterbacks was Sewell, Parsons, the receivers. It was just dudes everywhere. This is not. But I don't care how crappy or good a draft is at the time. Losing pick 7 sucks. Losing pick 29, John Schneider has been saying it for years. On average, 16 to 18 first-round picks. And maybe they're on the low end, but I would say the high end of optimistic teams would probably be 22. I've seen Andy Reid. They've traded first-round picks for a long period of time for players. You know why? Because you don't feel great about taking a guy at 29, at 30, at 31. To me, the Rams and the 49ers both feel 1,000,000% vindicated on their moves this offseason for this first-round pick. Now, both of them have another first-round pick next year, but it's... Well, yeah, to me it shows you... And listen, I like talking about the draft as much as the next guy. I love texting my buddies in the league about the draft. It can be the whole point of the fucking sport is to win.
Well, here's an example for you. If the Chiefs have traded a first rounder for Joe Mixon 2 years ago, what would people have said?
They're nuts.
But wouldn't they rather have him than Clyde Edwards-Helaire right now?
Oh, you're just saying if they would have picked 32 instead of for Clyde for Joe Mixon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's a unique because you know how people talk about running backs. They would have said they were crazy. But they did kind of with Clyde. Like, why are you taking a running back?
I'm just saying they'd be better today
if
they had him over Clyde. Like, Clyde was just I mean, he's good. He doesn't
They just kind of liked him. He was riding the LSU train. They're just like, sweet, let's just take.
I liked it. I thought it was a good pick. And he plays like he doesn't play. He's not a bust. I mean,
he's gotten better. He's gotten better.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
So no, it's to support your point. It's a great point. And I think you had to be reassured that watching the Chiefs the other day, if you were Kyle, I think this is not breaking news. We talk about quarterbacks. I don't know. Did you see the NFL sketch of Michael Irvin and Stephen A. Smith from this weekend?
No.
It's like got Molly Quorum is like, is Tom Brady exceptional or very exceptional? And Stephen A's like, he's exceptional. And then he does his thing. And then Michael Irvin's like, I cannot disagree more. He's very exceptional. So my point is Josh Allen and Pat Mahomes have this incredible game, and everyone's rushing to like declare what it means. But we all know what it means. They're two of the greatest quarterbacks. They're 25 and 26. They're not going anywhere. They're going to be battling it out for years to come. You want one of those guys, not one of the other types of guys. I said it. Everyone else, we've all said it. Like, if you have one of those guys, it changes everything. Doesn't guarantee you anything, but it changes everything potentially. And if you're Kyle Shanahan, like, we're not going to get into the Jimmy Garoppolo's future conversation now, but when we talk about Jimmy's future, no, you watch the Bills and the Chiefs. If you don't have one of those guys, all you're doing is trying to get one of those guys. And there's not that many of them. So when we say, like, I don't know, Trey's got some of the tools. Could he be Josh Allen? I mean, I guess he's above the line of guys that could be Josh Allen because he's got a certain skill set, and there's a small number of guys that have that skill set. But from having the skill set to being Josh Allen, there's a long way to go. But at least you're in the game if you have that type of guy. Like, it's not just that they won. It's that we've seen enough of Trey here to go, we don't know what he's going to be, but we know that the guys we're fighting, the Bills, the Chiefs, the guys that have the best shot every year, have that type of guy. Now, it doesn't just have to be physicality, right? Tom's not physically like those guys, but he can carry you. But you just need one of those guys.
So someone mentioned this to me the other day. They said when you look at the pipeline, obviously this year does not possess any Trey Lance skill set guys. You could argue maybe Malik Willis, I think his name is, the dude from Liberty, but I saw someone do this tweet thread of him like throwing picks. He looks fucking terrible. And he plays for definitely probably the best non-Power 5 offensive coach. And Hugh Freeze is, say what you want about him, with the hookers. The guy can coach offense, right? Beat Saban.
I didn't say anything. I didn't want to say anything about him. With the
I mean, he did have some hookers on the road. That was it kind of derailed his career.
If this were the 80s, John.
He also coached the game from remember the
hospital bed.
Hospital bed. But then my guy also mentioned, he's like, well, look at the sweet young guys in college football. Bryce Young doesn't physically look like these guys. He's tiny.
Right.
CJ Stroud is not. He's a smooth pocket kind of thrower. He's not a runner moving around type guy. He does not look like Mahomes and Allen. So the Niners took a swing for the fences. We have no clue it's going to work. It's why this, right? The craziest part about this game is, to me, one of the two teams we're going to get Matt Stafford to play in this game. If he wasn't a Ram, he would have been the Niners, because the Niners would have done 2-1s in Jimmy Garoppolo, right? They would have done the same deal happily for Matt Stafford. We've seen Kyle Shanahan. He'd rather have the veteran guy. That option got taken off the table, so they had to do the Trey Lance thing. But both of them, are validated with the move. And both of them at times, like the Stafford thing wasn't working out. It's like, God damn, if they're a one and done in the playoffs, it's going to be a huge kick in the dick. At one point in time, we had talked all season long, like, you Band-Aided this thing with Jimmy, you're going to miss the playoffs. That's devastating. Well, somehow, and it all gets back to week 18, you see Sean Payton today was like, I'm rooting for the Rams. The reason we weren't in the playoffs,
Because I thought he said he was rooting for the Bengals.
Well, no, he said, I'm rooting against the Rams because they screwed us out of the playoffs.
He was like, I don't know where the Bengals get Who Day from. But
So to me, the draft can be really, really, Belichick sometimes got nitpicked over the years. Like, guys, I'm fucking winning 13 games a year. I'm going every year minimum to lose in the Super Bowl. You think I give a shit about whether I got Chase Winovich right or not? It's like, do you know who we make a big deal of the draft? The Dolphins, the Jags, the Lions. The Belichick, you think he loses sleep over missing on Sony Michel? No, he trades that guy 3 years in and moves on. And he gets whatever. What's the guy's He's got Damian Harris and the other sweet little dude. He doesn't even worry about it. It's like, whatever. Could have had Nick Chubb. Fucking I don't. Whatever. See you in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think with quarterbacks, though, to go back to the point, because I heard
DeAndre something is the guy's name.
Swift?
No, that's the Lions guy. Not Hunter.
Brown, someone with a B?
They got a sweet little running back, though.
With an R.
Ramonde. Yeah, something like that.
Ramondre
Williamson? Swift?
No.
James?
If I Googled it, I could find it, but
yeah.
I'd
Chat.
rather
Blow us.
Stevenson.
Yeah.
Shout out to the chat, our producers. I think quarterbacks are really interesting because you can kind of build any narrative you want, however you want to do it. Like we're talking about Josh Allen. He's not actually left in the playoffs. Joe Burrow is, right?
Well, Rodgers is getting shit on for losing all these playoff games the last decade, right? Right now.
Yeah, no, totally. But what I mean is you can build any narrative about what type of quarterback you need. Because I heard, like, to this point, I heard DJ and Bucky talking about, like, I think people are going to err more on the side. It used to be about accuracy. People are going to err more on the side of talent.
Like Trey Lance.
Malik, with the Liberty quarterback.
Wouldn't you say Trey Lance was that, right?
Yes, but haven't we been doing this forever? Like, here's my example. If you wanted to last weekend, you could have said, look at all these quarterbacks. Josh Allen, JC in Wyoming. If you look at Pat Mahomes, because I looked, Patrick Mahomes' star rating coming out of high school would be 35th in this year's 2022 class, and Josh Allen's star rating would be 126th in this year's recruiting class. Be like Joe Burrow, transfer. Jimmy Garoppolo, small school, right? Or you could go Jimmy Garoppolo, second rounder, Josh Allen, first rounder, Patrick Mahomes, first rounder.
Tannehill, first rounder.
Tannehill, first rounder. Joe Burrow, first rounder. Like, I think you can always look at the physicality. The fact is, I believe there are quarterbacks, great quarterbacks are by definition exceptions. I think it's really hard to find patterns with great quarterbacks. I think it's easy to pretend we found a pattern and to build a pattern. I think it's really hard to find patterns that we all pretend like sometimes. I do too. I mean, we all do. Because the great hunt in sports is finding the next great quarterback. But we've seen it time and time again. There is no science to it. And part of it is fit. Part of it is where you go.
I do think the character for 99% of the great ones have been pretty high.
Okay, character. Well, but yes.
There have been some assholes probably too over the years, yes.
But I mean, like to say, well, I need to find Mahomes or Josh Allen, like physically, cool. Well, you're going to be waiting like 5 drafts.
Well, is there any doubt in your mind that after last year on Monday night when Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, I'm pretty sure his numbers were like 27-30 for like 4 touchdowns. It was like the greatest game at the time he'd ever played, and it was unreal to watch. Don't you think when they were discussing Trey Lance and Fields that the Trey Lance, Kyle, and John, the name Josh Allen came up in the meeting?
Yeah, probably.
If you had to bet $1,000, do you think one of the two of them brought up like the Josh Allen?
We need somebody who can do that.
Yeah, that specific experience that Kyle witnessed, and then Kyle said, "Remember, leading up to it was like, God damn, that kid. He's went out of his way to talk about Josh Allen more than Mahomes, because I do think Mahomes is." To me, Mahomes is more of an outlier of he kind of flew under the radar. Josh Allen did not fly under the radar.
No.
Josh Allen was a guy that was heavily nitpicked, and it was like, well, you're either going to bet on it and you're probably going to get fired because you bet on it, or you're just going to hit one of the greatest Babe Ruth level walk-off home runs ever seen. And now Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott are like this.
Well, you're right. That is part of where the Josh Allen
polarizing players, I'd say, in the history of the draft since we've been talking. Because his talent was so crazy, but his tape was so terrible.
Terrible. And I do think that's your right to bring that up. Like, that is part of where the Trey Lance, Josh Allen conversation comes from. It's not just, physically, look at Trey, could he be that? It is North Dakota State and Wyoming, and how do we project this? Because who did he play against? But the second you do that, you're like, well, Drew Brees isn't good enough, and Tom Brady's not, physically they don't match up with this type of player.
Mac Jones isn't good enough. Boom, he's been good.
But I would this is why you take Drew Brees in the second round and Trey Lance in the first round, right? You don't take Mac Jones generally in the first round and try to make him into Tom Brady or to Drew Brees.
Well, I'm saying I felt
But my point is they're all exceptions, is what I'm saying. Mac could be an exception. Brady's an exception. Breeze is an exception. But Mahomes and Josh Allen are exceptions too. They're all exceptions. Greatness is exceptional. Very exceptional, in the words of fake Michael Irvin on SNL. Very exceptional.
Yeah, I won't disagree. There is a level. Here's the one thing with the quarterbacks, and I remember an underrated part, somewhat missed these days, but I don't miss like having a dog in the fight that if you lose, it's miserable in the office. You end up, the conversations you have in the NFL, and same when I was at Fresno State, are just the highest level of like fan conversations. You're just debating players and debating assistant coaches and debating stuff with, it happened to be like with guys like Louis Riddick and Brett Veach, but you're having and Howie and having these conversations about, is this guy good enough? Is this guy not? No different than the conversations we have or the fans have over a beer. You just potentially may have the opportunity to like meet that player and then draft that player. But the thing that you never know with the quarterbacks, or you do, like if you're on the team, is a lot of it's out of their control. Like Peyton Manning, and I think if you and I were sitting there with beers, he's like, I benefited a lot. I went to a team that had Bill Polian. We hired Tony Dungy a couple years later, and they had Marvin Harrison already on the team. Right? Like as a quarterback, who surrounds you really matters. And part of Trey Lance, if he starts next year, which he probably will, is he's going to benefit a lot from the opportunity to have fucking star players at skill positions around him. Like that's the one thing with Trevor Lawrence is like, who's he really playing with? Same thing with Zach Wilson. Hell, same thing. Justin Fields' team sucks.
Think about Josh Allen in his developmental years. Really good defenses. They traded for one of the best receivers in the NFL.
They get Knox. They signed Cole Beasley, who's a really good slot receiver.
Yep.
They
care about running backs there.
It feels like I'm not going to say they hit a home run, but Gabriel Davis got something to him, right? Drafted that guy in the 4th round.
Yeah.
Who just looked like a big body guy, Feels like they did a pretty good job getting big body guys around him beside Cole Beasley. Because I remember when they signed Cole Beasley, I'm like, Josh Allen's not the most accurate guy. You want a little midget slot receiver? But then he got accurate, and when you watch the Bills, like Cole Beasley's a big part of their offense, right?
Yeah, you just need the perfect piece of clay that develops at a rate that most quarterbacks don't.
But again, like Trey Lance is going to benefit from being around Kyle and Welker, and hopefully McDaniel stays. Josh Allen got to go with a very calming presence in Sean and clearly a really good offensive coordinator who was people I saw were shitting on Daboll, like, look back at he's failed everywhere. Sometimes he failed and he's learned from it. Now he's figured it out. Now he's good. And so once Josh Allen, maybe they just got together at the perfect time. There isn't timing in life. Like how'd you meet Alyssa? Didn't you have a class with her? Like things are out of our control. Whether you're a quarterback, whether you're a fucking salesman, whether you're trying to meet your wife, like there are parts of life that Tom Brady, you cannot dispute, benefited dramatically from getting drafted in the 6th round and ending up around Bill Belichick and just that team. If he had ended up, when you're a 6th round pick, you literally can end up on any of the other 31 teams. I mean,
Polian had a 1st round grade on him.
But like, what if he would have ended up in the Bengals? What if he would have ended up in the Jags? Like, Aaron
Rodgers on the Browns.
The age-old question is, and this great part of like a hypothetical conversations bullshit with your buddies is you never truly know. Because you could argue like, do you believe that Patrick Mahomes could have gone to any 32 teams and would have become a great player? Not as quickly, but would have become a great player. Or more, let's use him, not Josh Allen.
I think he would have become a great player in most situations. Maybe not. He would have become at minimum a really good player. Yes, I do believe that. But I think he gets to be his best with Andy Reid.
I would tend to want to agree with you, but I think we have a lot of, most people listening, you and I, have never been to these crazy, shitty organizations, but we've all heard enough players talk about it and be like, God, that was fucking crazy. And it can really destroy you. Now, Alex was nowhere near as talented as Patrick, but that thing for 4 or 5 years I don't care who you are. It's really hard to overcome that. Like, I think it's fair to say Josh Allen probably, with the work he needed, could not have overcome a Lions, a Jags. It would have killed him, right? Where Patrick was just more talented naturally, immediately coming into the league. But I don't know, man. It's maybe their character, they're mentally tough enough. You'd say Patrick comes from a pro background. Maybe he just would have had the wiring.
I think Alex, Steph. You don't normally get to see a guy get all the way through it and come out on the other side. I think that's what's so remarkable about Alex Smith's career, right? Is that I do think Alex, in a stable situation, he wouldn't have been, in the end, like better than what he ultimately was, but he would have been that guy a lot earlier and would have put together, just a career with more stuff in it. And I think it's one of the great football miracles that Alex Smith turned into the Alex Smith we got at the end. Because 999,000 out of a million guys do not get through all of that. And maybe Alex would tell you if he was here right now, it's part of how he became that guy. But I think Alex could have been that guy. Like, he's a solid enough guy. He didn't need to go through all of that to become the quarterback he became.
Now, the one thing you would say is who values you when you're on another team, regardless of what happens, speaks to you. Andy Reid wanted to sign him the year Harbaugh came as a backup. We were going to pay him $5 million to be Michael Vick's backup. Andy Reid loved him. Loved him. Obviously ended up getting him. Still to this day loves him. Goes out of his way. When they had the Patrick Mahomes press conference, they talked immediately about Alex Smith. So I think Matt Stafford is a good example of that. Matt Stafford was available this offseason. Two guys were willing to throw the farm at him were Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan. So you could argue who likes you. Sometimes these polarizing players that are like talented come available. It's like, who really wants you? And some of them go to the shitty teams. But some of them, like you see, the Honey Badger is a good example. Every time he became available, like all the sweet teams and good coaches want him, right?
Yeah.
And now
is he a Steeler next?
Yeah, I mean, he had a good career from the jump, so maybe that's not the perfect example.
No, I think it's a pretty good example.
I think sometimes just
coaches
with quarterbacks, you can just
a quarterback
get
of a defense.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, I just think you can get in these shitty situations. Like, there isn't
somebody else calls the plays for you, John.
I think there's a chance that Trevor Lawrence's career is just a disaster, and it might not be totally his fault. But it'll be like, oh, Trevor Lawrence was a bust.
I do think one thing with him is, like, let's say he ends up in the position Darnold is in. Like, Darnold physically has limitations that Trevor Lawrence is pretty physically unique.
People would be all over him.
Yeah, and I think he'd go to the right place and just have, like, maybe it would never be great, but he wouldn't just, like, end up out of football.
Well, if Trevor Lawrence was on the open market right now, what would Howie Roseman do to trade for him? 3 1s and a 2 2s?
I mean, he would not. I don't think his stock in his eyes would have dropped at all.
Not at all. What would the Lions do to get him?
I mean, he would refuse. Well, they look kind of solid. Like, the Lions don't look like a joke.
You think Dan Campbell would have been? I text you this. I mean, he was his assistant head coach the last 4 or 5 years.
The one thing is that Dennis Allen's defense was really good this year, so maybe he still would have been ahead of Dan Campbell. But I think you could argue if you're the Saints, like, at that point in time, Dan was the interim coach for the Dolphins, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
So Dennis had his shot. It didn't go well. It was with the Raiders. That'd be Dennis's argument was, I was with the Raiders, guys. But it didn't go well. So maybe Dan would be next in line. Dan would have been there longer, right, than Dennis Allen? Is that what you said?
Probably about. I think Dennis has been there for a while now. Feels like, doesn't it? Like 4 or 5 years. And their defense has been good. We spent a little time around Dennis. Not everyone's
a little time. Dennis Allen spoke to the team. And by the team, I mean the radio station we worked at in the Raiders meeting room. And Middlekauff's phone rang. I'm sitting next to him, front and center, Dennis Allen on the stage. And then didn't you try to silence it and you could hear your mom? Like, John?
I tried to silence it. I accidentally hit accept and my mom started talking and it was as perfect. A football guy, I was embarrassed for the situation.
So
it was a low. I look like a radio guy. Like,
That's right.
I'm a football guy. And it's like my mom, and it's just, you get thrown out of meeting for that. I just do. Now you can improve and stuff. I would imagine Dennis Allen is more schematically, higher than Dan Campbell. I do wonder if Dan Campbell might be a little more suited to be a head coach than Dennis.
Yeah,
There's
I think
there's
you might be
nothing
right
wrong
about
with
that.
being a number 2 making $2 million a year. Now, I get why he'd want the job, but Mickey Loomis, you fucking had a front row seat for Sean Payton for 15 years. Like, I don't think you're just giving the job away, right?
No, but think about it this way. You've been tight with Sean Payton for the last 16 years. Sean Payton says, hey, trust me, I think this guy's got it. What do you do? Okay, but I'm going to go on a search, Sean. And Sean's like, I'm telling you, Dennis Allen's the guy. This is one of your best friends, a guy who has made you wealthy, a guy who has brought you a championship, a guy who's run this. You know what I mean? Like, that's a tough spot to be in if you're Mickey Loomis.
Well, and I love the guy. And it's not, maybe he'll be better a second shot. Andy Reid said that Matt Nagy, of all of his, at the time when he got the Bears job 4 years ago, at the time Andy had coached like 19 years. He said in his 19 years, he'd never had an assistant coach who was more ready to become a head coach. And check the resume of the head coaches. So it's just.
Could I argue if I'm Matt Nagy, never had a quarterback? Now, it's his job to find it and develop it, but.
And his GM sucked. Yeah, but I'm just saying that it goes back to my scouting days when you got to be very careful about talking to the head coach about, they get so close to certain players and certain coaches, it can cloud their judgment. Like, I do think Mickey, in a weird way, can have more of a 20,000-foot view of the situation where it's like, Sean can say that, but it's like, Sean, you're retiring. You're leaving me now, right? So it's just, I don't think Dennis Allen's a lock to get the job.
No, I agree, but I do think he is a real candidate.
I think he's a real candidate, and I think in a perfect world, I think Mickey Loomis would want an offensive coach, and we'll just keep paying you $2 million to be the defensive coordinator. That's just a guess. I don't know these guys at all.
Yeah, which would be a good situation for them because somebody else would not be hiring Dennis Allen. You're the only ones that would hire Dennis Allen. I was a little caught off guard by the Sean Payton.
I think Dennis did. I swear I saw him get an interview, but it felt more like a courtesy.
Like Denver or something?
Yeah.
I was caught off guard by the Sean Payton news. Probably shouldn't have been because I went back just doing some Googling. And
Sean Payton Googles a lot too.
Sean Payton just Googles how not to cry in a press conference. You yawn? How is that a good alternative?
Drink water.
And drink water. But his press conference was fantastic. I do want to talk for a minute about what comes next for Sean Payton. But Rap Sheet wrote a piece Sunday morning I went back and read that said Sean's on vacation. He's not returning calls. He is not committed to being the Saints coach for next year. He actually wrote in the piece, it's not uncommon for people to turn off their phone on vacation. Like, Sean couldn't possibly be ignoring the call. His phone just must be off, which, yeah, I think it is pretty abnormal to turn off your phone for a week. But
when you're the CEO of a company, that's pretty abnormal, right?
But I thought it was very clear listening to him talk, John. I would expect him to coach again. I expect him to work in TV this year. I think Rap Sheet wrote he's walking away from like $45 million by not coaching the Saints. He wrote he's been approached by a TV network. Now, Payton said, I don't know. Yes, maybe that's 3 years left on his contract. If it's $45 million,
God damn, that's a lot of money.
Maybe it's 4 years. I don't know. But Rap Sheet said that he'd been approached, Sean Payton, by a TV network before the season was over. Payton said, I don't know anything about that, but in his press conference added, but I think I'd be pretty good at it. So it feels like we're getting Sean Payton on TV this year. And after watching that press conference, I think that'd be a fantastic thing. He is really good on the mic.
Monday Night Football written all over him?
Monday Night Football, if Aikman there was the report the other day that if Amazon's going to try and take Aikman, I think they'd be crazy. I mean, Fox, him and Buck, maybe he goes to Amazon. Maybe he goes to Monday Night Football. Maybe he goes to a Manning cast. I don't know what his desires are, but I think he'd be fantastic on games.
Before I unfollowed like Marchand, the media people that write about media, I'm like, I can't. It is such a waste of my energy to even pretend I give a shit about the media stuff, even though sometimes I do like it, but I hated following, so I unfollowed him. They did a podcast maybe 2 weeks ago or a week ago. They're like, is this crew's last game on Monday Night Football? Like, I think the industry thinks like that crew ain't coming back on Monday Night Football. You know?
Wonder who
I saw Jason Barrett, the
play-by-play
emails we get on the mass emails. The guy that used to run Monday Night Football forever, I think, like with Gruden and even Madden, said that it was the most embarrassing broadcast he's ever seen. Like it's an embarrassing product to put on Monday Night Football.
I wonder. Did he talk about what specifically he found embarrassing about it?
I just saw the headline. I was like, I don't even want to click.
I would love to.
I
have
did
a
click, and then I
conversation
had to get two cards, and I was like, I'm not even.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, everyone's trying to find it.
They don't have star. They don't have star power, right?
Yeah, but that in and of itself doesn't make it the worst broadcast ever. But yeah, Sean would bring immediate star power. But I think it's hard to do 1 year of TV and then just go back to coaching, unless you don't really like the TV. Like you said earlier in the podcast, these guys are addicted to the competition. But I think 1 year of TV is probably fun enough that maybe you do it for 2 or 3 years. But it does feel like the Cowboy. I mean, your first guess was the Cowboys when we were texting about it, and I saw everyone and their mom had some version of a GIF about what Mike McCarthy should be thinking right now. I just think there's a lot of coaches on notice around the league right now, right? If you got hired in the last 2 years, if you're getting hired this year, you're on notice because every coach that's getting hired this year, their team would rather hire Sean Payton than them. And so if Sean's suddenly available next year, it's like, whoops.
I could see this going 2 years. Once you get to like the 5-year mark, you're probably never coming back. But like, I could see the 2 years. Like you said, if he's giving up a ton of money, he has made so much cash. He has made, but he's so rich. He is so rich. It's not even, it's just to keep the money flowing. The offers, though, from the NFL, like, we want you to run the organization, and here is $100 million, right? Here's 6 years, $100 million. Or just, like, that's his going rate. His going rate is super high.
I think if you're Sean Payton, you are coming back for an opportunity with a specific quarterback, first and foremost. And then they have to pay you what you're talking about.
Yeah, watching him today, like, I think Drew Brees leaving him, he was never the same. He didn't enjoy it.
You don't think he enjoyed Ian Book and Taysom Hill?
I do wonder if these next couple years, like if he does Thursday Night Football on, and he gets to meet a couple guys, and then that job becomes available, and he sparked up a relationship, that to me is like, wow, I didn't know this guy that well. That to me is an insight, and maybe he gets to meet some coaches, and I think it could translate it. Because even Gruden, who was gone a long time, it never felt it, and you could tell Sean, like he went out of his way, like, I'm not saying I'm done coaching. Like this is, why would he? This is what I do. This is what it doesn't get much better than me.
I think the Chargers is such a perfect job for him, given that it's kind of like
they don't pay though.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. But it's a perfect job in every other way. It's an organization that could use him. It's a market where, kind of like New Orleans, the Cowboys you're on a pedestal when you're the Cowboys coach, which clearly he's good at being on a pedestal, but he's kind of like been a basketball coach at a football school. We don't see Sean Payton talk that much.
No, I don't.
Herbert, but you're right. That's just Dean Spanos. It's not his MO.
If he had a vision, he'd be smart. Like give him whatever he wants to come run your organization next year and fire, Mr. Fraud. But I just don't think he will. Now the other thing is, and I tweeted this out. David Stern wouldn't let hated Stan Van Gundy. Wouldn't let him announce games. Now, I don't know this, but obviously at one point in time, they were mortal enemies. Roger Goodell and Sean Payton, suspended him for a year. Like the hatred, I don't know if it's like Al Davis and what was the guy's name? Not Tagliabue, but the guy before him, and the commissioner that hated each other.
Yeah.
But I don't care how much. If the NFL, and maybe their relationship has improved, if Roger doesn't want him calling games, he will not be calling games. It's just that simple.
I don't think it would get to that. Roger Goodell, first of all, works for the owners. I think Roger's changed a lot in the last few years.
Pete Rozelle.
I think Roger's changed. I don't think Roger Goodell would keep.
But
Sean
who knows?
Payton
Maybe their relationship, they've mended fences. It was. TV. I think those first couple years. Part of the movie was like I think he was suspended for a year.
Yeah.
Looking back, that's pretty nuts.
He'd be doing his sport a disservice, right? If he prevented Sean Payton from being, Monday Night Football or something like that.
100%. I don't. But just, it's obviously different. Again, Stan is run out of every place he goes as legal robbery, complete fraud. Sean is the complete opposite. But we've seen it before. And Roger, we just saw it with Gruden. Like, he's just maybe a sneaky, petty guy.
I think Roger's changed, at least like understanding publicly he is so much more comfortable than he used to be publicly.
I know you probably haven't spent much time thinking about it, but do you think he went out of his way to ruin Gruden? Or do you think he has nothing to do with it?
Do I think Roger went out of his way to ruin
Do you think
Gruden?
Roger was involved with the leaking of the emails to fuck Gruden?
I don't know. It's a good question. Like, I don't think it was so much about running Gruden out as maybe it was diverting attention from other things that might be in those emails. I don't know.
Weren't some of those emails him talking shit about Goodell? Obviously, the gay stuff. Roger Goodell is a gay brother. I can see him hate. I've heard he hates Gruden and they hate each other.
It just seems I don't put when you get to a level of money and power, I don't put anything beyond. But it seems to me you're injuring. Again, Roger is not like in charge of the owners. The owners are in charge of him, right?
But he pulls a lot of strings.
No, there's no question. It seems to me like you are hurting your own organization for a personal vendetta.
Do you think the owners discuss who's on television and who's not?
I think the league discusses it with their media partners, but I don't.
The partners?
Yeah, the partners. But I don't think. I don't think. What's I wanted to name? What's the owner of the? I like his name. The owner of the Vikings.
Oh, Ziggy Wolf.
Ziggy Wolf. I don't think Ziggy Wolf is like, what are we doing the meeting about who's on Monday Night Football? But I think they got people that are in charge of it.
Who's up for the fourth crew in Fox?
Spiro Dinas is on the Dolphins this week. Can I get that media map?
Hey guys, I've watched a couple Vilma games when we've had buys. We should bump him up the tree.
Yeah. Did you guys see Talib this weekend? That was a $10,000 coat.
They do. I mean, they're just.
It'd be notice when somebody criticizes them for sure.
Yeah. We've seen it.
Yeah, I'm sure they've got takes, but I don't think they make their own. Like, all right, everybody, send in your ranks, your play-by-play guy ranks. Let's see.
You tell Michael Irvin if he says one more thing about David Tepper. I feel like a lot of presidents hear it from their owner and then they go attack. Yeah. I think that's an underrated
or have to do it preemptively for when the owner calls. Like, already on it, boss.
I think that's a underrated part about being a team president is doing probably the stupidest things. Like, guys, I mean, who gives a shit that Michael Irvin's tweet went viral about talking shit about you? David Tepper's like, you don't know what it's like. Spent $2.2 billion on this team, and I got NFL Network, which I'm a partner in now, talking shit about me.
They're like, yeah, you're the new guy. Sorry, man.
Yeah, it's part of the deal.
Tom Brady, it pains Giselle to see me get hit out there, and she deserves what she needs from me as a husband, and my kids deserve what they need from me as a dad. He also added on Let's Go, we never know what's going to happen in the future. We really don't. Kobe Bryant, a friend of ours, God rest his soul. We think we're going to live forever. We're not. We think we're going to play forever. We're not. What can we do? We can enjoy the moments we have. Now, he said he's going to take some time here, not made any decisions. It feels like goodbye to hear these quotes. But I will say this. I think we should be careful, right? The way a person feels right after, a player feels right after a season.
There was a story before the game, though.
There was.
On Sunday morning. So if Tom, like you said, Tom had just said that, I saw his Jim Gray interview, the NFL radio tweeted out, I wouldn't make that much of it. But to me, that story was, I just wonder, remember the story about he's going to leave New England. There were rumblings, right? So you started thinking about it. Feels like he's gone, man. Feels like he's done.
It definitely feels that way. I mean, how could it feel any other way at this point? Now, is he really going to do it?
Well, yeah, that's where maybe these next 2 weeks, he's like, I'll see you guys in training camp. But I expect his retirement to get announced in the next 2 months.
I don't think I don't get the feeling that Tom needs to leave on a make, right? Like win a championship on the way out. But I did always feel like playing until he's 45 mattered to him, and he's not 45 yet, just to prove it. But like I said on the last show, like, what does he have to prove to anybody?
Nothing.
I can absolutely see the way he feels today versus the way, like when he was 39, going up, writing it down in his diary, or his vision board, I am playing till I'm 45. And then 44-year-old Tom Brady looks at it and goes, no, this is good enough. This is good enough. Being Tom Brady
commendable the other day. Like I know he didn't win, but I think he went out kind of on a high note.
I think it would be a hell of a way to go out. I
Do
really
you
do.
think do you think TB12 just tweets like, I'm going to retire?
Do you think it's harder to retire if he just won the championship or just lost the championship?
If you just won it.
Because if you just won it, I agree. You think, well, can I win another one? Right? Is that, or what would be your logic?
Well, I think it's harder to retire like Rodgers. Like, you still have football left. You still have something to prove. Tom has nothing to prove. You could argue Tom didn't really have anything to prove when he went to Tampa, but he proved it. He proved it. And ultimately, I think he can go to, if there's a competition of like, I was the most important guy in New England, kind of won the war. It's going to be hard for Bill to ever win another championship with Mac Jones.
Yeah, winning the one title, even if Bill wins another one, but winning the one right away
we
without
were both
him.
important, but let's be honest, it was probably 52-48 me. It wasn't 80-20, but it leans me.
Yeah, although I was watching them this week, thinking, he misses Bill. Arians does not run the operation that Bill runs.
Could be so 51-49. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it could be. My thought was, would he come back with another team like, the 49ers? Would Tom go? Because here's the one thing I would say about that theory, as I was thinking about it, was that's who I believe that's who Tom wanted to play with when he left New England. Wickersham basically wrote it. Tom to Welker, I want to come there. I'm not going to make a thing about it.
His parents,
the whole thing. He was at Candlestick for Joe Montana's last game. He was at Candlestick for Dwight Clark's catch. I do think the 49ers mean something to Tom Brady. And when Tom Brady left New England, it's like when you leave your house hoping to find a slice of pizza. That's what you want, is a slice of pizza, and the pizza place is closed, so you go next door, and it turned out you get like a 5-star steak meal, and it's a great meal. It's the filet. It was delicious. It was better than you could have imagined. But you still didn't satiate your craving for pizza. And the 49ers is what he wanted. Now, we got the championship in Tampa, but he wanted to play for the 49ers. Do I think that's going to happen? No, I'm not saying that. But I do wonder if that's any part of his thinking. I could go one more year. Once I've gone to Tampa, I can go. I'm in a Bucs uniform, for crying out loud. Look at this logo on the side of my head. You're telling me I couldn't go play for another team and try and do it again there? It just doesn't feel right now like he has that desire to do that.
He'd have to ask for a trade, and then we did this 2 years ago, and we said, don't do it. If he says, I want to get traded there,
Don Yee,
what do you do?
I think if you're Tampa, you do it. Unlike New England.
But what could you? I'm not trading my second-round pick for a 1 year Tom Brady, am I? Or do you?
You're trading Jimmy, and like, to me, it's as simple as he's not a free agent, but I do think Tampa's in a different position than like New England would be.
Yeah.
Tampa, Tom, whatever, when you came here, we understood we would do whatever you want. So we'll help you, whatever you want to do. It actually,
would you do it?
Would
you do it?
Jimmy.
Just another sit for Trey Lance, another year to
Yes.
develop?
If I were the Niners, I would sit Trey Lance for another year behind Tom Brady. Yes.
Would you give up Jimmy and you don't have a first, so your second round pick for Tom Brady?
Yeah, I would. He led the league in passing this year.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah.
That'd be fucking badass. I think Haberman Middlekauff would sign up for that as well. So, yes. But do you feel like so you think there's a chance that that's what he wants to do on his way out? Like, he kind of goes full, this sounds bad, but I mean, kind of football mercenary? I mean, a little Brett Favrean, right?
Yeah.
Brett did the same shit.
Brett ultimately didn't want to play for the Jets, but had to play for the Jets so he could then leave the Jets and play for the Vikings and return the favor to the Packers, right?
So ultimately, Tom probably didn't really want to play for Tampa, but he was forced into it. But he knew it was a good situation.
It's not even that he didn't want to play there. I think he wanted to play for the 49ers. We know he wanted to play for the 49ers.
So just Jimmy, a second-round pick, and then just Trey take some more notes?
Yeah. But think about this. I mean, if you're
What's
going
a better
to make
quarterback
Trey
room, Jimmy and Trey or Tom and Trey?
Like, if you're going to sit for a year, sit behind Tom Brady. Am I saying that's what I think he wants? I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with a theory here. A part of it, I don't want him to go. Watching him is remarkable, but we've never heard him talk like this.
How much do you think Niners-Rams tickets would be if it's Tom Brady versus Stafford next year?
Well, what if it's like, how about if it's, Niners make the Super Bowl and then it's Thursday Night Football to open the season, Mahomes, Niners, Brady's debut? Because if you go to the Super Bowl,
Do you think the 49ers unequivocally 100% would want Tom Brady at this point?
Yes.
I do too.
Imagine that, John. You make the Super Bowl, you trade for Brady, so Brady's debut is Thursday night against the team you just played in the Super Bowl rematch. Mahomes and Andy beat the Niners by 30, and yet the Niners get to host the game somehow.
That'd be sweet. Or do you just go like Niners Rams? Oh no, I see what you're saying. Because
I'm saying whoever play, yeah.
They're like, actually, we're going to manipulate the rules, Chiefs. We'll give you Sunday night. We're going to put Tom Thursday night.
Do you think if you're Tom's mom and you see him quote, like, it pains Giselle to see me get hit out there, you're like, what about me? It pained me to watch you get hit out there. Or do moms have like a toughness built up?
I think there's a relationship between moms and their sons' wives. Sometimes I think that, who knows? I mean, he's been married. Has he been married twice?
No, he had the baby with Bridget Moynihan, but they were not married. Actually, they had broken up, and then it turned out she was pregnant.
It's hard to tell. I mean, I'd be fascinated to know, like, just sit down with the Brady's parents. What they like? Are they all in on Giselle? Or are they wishy-washy? You know, I don't know.
Would you all rather have 3 more years of Aaron Rodgers or 1 year at TB12? I guess that's like if you were the Niners.
I think ultimately you get so much credit for making Trey Lance something. I would do the 1 year with TB12 and try to keep developing Trey Lance to there. Honestly, Aaron Rodgers, and it's not because of the COVID shit. I've had a lot of time to just think about the last couple of days. Like, how the fuck did he lose that game? How the fuck did he lose that game? If I was a Packer fan, it's like, I'm not blaming Aaron Rodgers, but holy shit. Can you just... I feel like Brady and Mahomes pull shit out of their orifices. Like, Aaron, every single human alive that doesn't hate you, like, is a Bears fan or whatever, acknowledges, like, this guy, man, holy moly, is this guy good. And then this game, it just... Because when you said it after the game, I didn't totally... But as this kind of simmered in me, it's like, what was he doing? How did he not make a play or two? Like, I am not losing this fucking game to this team that can't score a touchdown. How did he lose that game? That game, to me, is going to age very, very poorly on his resume. I do not put the 19 thing on him. Last year, I didn't even put it as much on him either. You lose a game 13-10 at home?
I would take Brady for 1 year.
Brady's a better player.
He's not going to win the MVP, but
not more talented.
I think he's a better player. Yeah. I said this to you, I think, off the air.
The Niners beat Aaron Rodgers scoring 13 points.
That game has aged differently for me, too. And I tweeted it like after I rewatched it Monday morning or Sunday morning. Like, it just gets worse the more I think about that game for them. Because it was zero. It's home field and it's 0 degrees and snowing. And you lost. But I also think if you listen to Sean Payton today, he did look. That's a good point.
I think he looks old in his face. He does. He looks weathered.
Yeah. He's not on the TB12.
No. But even like you look at like Peyton and Eli, they just look like normal. I feel like Aaron looks way older than I'm 37. Do I look as old as Aaron Rodgers?
Genetic. Sometimes it's just you get some bags. But if you listen to Sean Payton, listen to anybody talk about leadership, they talk about the environment you create. I think sometimes we go over the top with team. We're like, oh, these are all pros. They're not all getting together after the game like college athletes do. But anybody that wins talks about the team. And, Aaron just brings a little baggage with him to the team. And I'm talking strictly about just like trying to leave the team every year for the last couple of years. That I do wonder, hearing about every day your coach and your quarterback, does he like your GM? All that kind of stuff comes with you. And I don't think that's an ideal situation. Every coach says it, man. When the going gets tough, a tight-knit group of guys is going to be stronger than a group that isn't. And maybe their Packers just missing a little something.
Well, did you see that the Athletic Sandoz article on Aaron Rodgers? And one of the quotes from a team executive is like, Aaron's, talking about Joe Rogan and Joe Biden and COVID. And listen, me personally, I get fired up on the same shit. I don't disagree with a lot of things Aaron said. But then the quote was like, Tom Brady doesn't mention any of it. Tom Brady probably agrees too. Tom Brady's a fucking hardcore Republican. But the guy's like, all Tom Brady talks about is football. He doesn't go, like, Aaron, like, part of it, you just make it about things, like, what's the point? It's why I've stopped
But I think you
tweeting
can
about
leave.
anything
But I
because
think
I
you
just
can.
don't feel any value in it about some of this stuff. Like, I'm not going to complain all day.
But I think you can leave all of that stuff out of it and have the same conversation about Aaron from a team standpoint.
But I think this year's a good example. Is like he just couldn't let stuff go. Where like I'll give Tom credit, he can compartmentalize really easily and pivot for the betterment of just everything that's going to surround him. And Aaron kind of dove into it, and it just makes it's like there's a small percentage of people on social media, and when you do that, you create these huge things, but nothing changes, right? Like the restrictions, whatever's going on in life, like nothing's going to change no matter how angry you get unless you're a fucking politician. We have no power to change it. So it's why coaches say, like, just focus on what you have to focus on. It's no point in talking about it. Like, even basic things, like don't talk shit about their team. And I think Aaron really, and I'm all for like letting it loose, but also like, is this productive for what you're trying to do? And it's clearly not. And I'm not saying that's the reason they lost, but I do think like, do you think Tom hasn't had the same thoughts? Right? I mean, it's just.
So this is why I go back to. To me, it's not about his Joe Rogan conversation, his comment. I think it's more about the fact that he is not aligned with his organization. Sean Payton said it. Your president, your owner, your coach, your team. If you want a good environment, everybody's got to be aligned. He is publicly not aligned for multiple years now. I think it's more that than any of this other stuff of what he says publicly. I think it's because his teammates don't care. His teammates care about in the locker. What is it? Is it weird here? Our guy's not here. How many franchise quarterbacks who aren't holding out for a new contract don't show up?
Tom hasn't showed up the last 3 years.
Okay, so there's him. But it's not because of drama.
It's just because he uses it for rest in his family. But he hasn't showed up to OTAs since his last year in New England, and then both years in Tampa.
Well, why you do something matters then.
Now the difference is,
and how you do something matters.
When you say the difference is Tom does fly you to Montana or whatever, like Tom does. I remember a guy in the league told me, he's like, the bullshit about Tom Brady saying that they should cancel OTAs? Well, fuck yeah, Tom wants everyone to cancel so he can fly everyone to him. He gets a competitive advantage. Tom's doing it up here. Aaron's like, his whole thing was like, fuck OTAs, no one needs it. And everyone's like, well, we get bonuses, bro. Remember Devontae Adams was like, yeah, I don't know if he's going to show up, but I got $500,000. I'll be here.
Yeah.
So I just think Aaron, from a football standpoint, talks about things, whether it's, again, talking about Joe Rogan. 200 million people listen to Joe Rogan a month. I don't listen to him, but I'm just saying, like that's, social media acts like Joe Rogan's an idiot. Everyone listens to him. So, but like, he's the only guy relentlessly talking about this stuff. Because Tom Brady, for example, and Nick Saban was the same way. Didn't you say someone told you about like Kyle, like, give me the shot, like let's rock and roll. I just have to let's just coach, let's play. Nick Saban got it, and everyone in the SEC, boom, they got it. Right? It's just competitive disadvantage. Tom Brady didn't even think, fucking give me, boom, let's rock and roll. I got it literally to go to 49ers practices. That's the only reason I got it. I got the Rona pre-vax, fucking didn't do anything to me. I got to go to Niners practice. I know for a fact I got it.
I mean, you believe.
I 1,000,000% had the fucking Rona.
Well, I believe that you did. I'm just saying, fact is.
Yeah, but I didn't. I just had it. The Cron. I didn't quote unquote test for it till I tested positive, but I had that as well. If you're at a party where everyone has it and you have the symptoms,
everyone else
has
positive. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The test is kind of, you just get a little swabby, and then you put it in there. Then you wait 15 minutes, and you're like, is this really like a risk?
I think there's so many false both ways with those tests.
I remember doing it a couple times, and then you're like, put it in. It's like, you just wait. This is technology. Yeah. I'm really supposed to believe this? And I did it because I was going to go see my mom, who, I was like, Mom, I'm negative.
Legally, I'm good, Mom. You cannot sue me.
At CVS.
You can't sue me, Mom. One other thing I want to mention, because we've had a few people ask about this. So let's make it official. Thanks to everybody that got involved. This was, for those of you who are maybe new to the podcast in 2022, through the middle of November through the end of December, we had a fundraising campaign with an awesome charity called No Kid Hungry. And together with your help, with Tito's Handmade Vodka, with Puesto, and with Enzo Olive Oil, Enzo, who also donated Enzo Olive Oil, which is great olive oil, and other products. raised $23,190. We just got the official tabulation Monday from No Kid Hungry. Pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Kudos to everybody.
Yeah. Kudos to everybody.
They donated. I mean, not kudos to us. I mean,
No.
kudos
I'm
us
just.
too, but
That's pretty great.
kudos.
And no, we can't throw it on the Chiefs money line. It goes to No Kid Hungry.
Yeah,
So
the money's to the charity. We don't have it. It doesn't come to us.
So to those of you that donated $10, to those of you that some people, we got some $500 donations and up. That's pretty incredible. So thank you to everybody that did. And shared it. People, a lot of people shared it as well. So that's pretty awesome.
Good job, people.
Good job. All right. On that note, we probably Hall of Fame balloting, John. I want to go through it with you. Maybe another day.
Barry didn't get in.
We were going to talk about Debo today, but we can probably save that for another time. Although there was this quote from Chris Carter: "If Percy Harvin and Anquan Bolden had a baby, it'd be named Debo." Apparently, he said that on Good Morning
in 2022 that it'd be possible for those two to have a baby
and have him be born at the age of 22 and NFL ready.
Yeah,
maybe like a clone. Maybe more of a clone, maybe.
Be a sweet player. I mean, Debo literally is a sweet player. Percy Harvin, it feels like a lot of people talk about him like he was sweet. I don't remember that many moments, but
yeah, the injuries, and even does he just get compared to Anquan because he kind of looks like him?
Which
is that is a reason to compare people. Don't get me wrong.
Because he's thick.
Yeah, he's kind of just jacked. But did Anquan ever run an end around?
Anquan was 4'8". Anquan was slow.
That's a speed, not a. I know. But I mean, body type is part of the comparison.
Percy Harvin did. Yeah, he did have a kick return in the Super Bowl. It was pretty cool.
I think if Kyle had Percy Harvin, he'd kind of use him in similar ways. But
Percy Harvin, I'm pretty sure, was a character guy. I bet Kyle would hate Percy Harvin. But
yes,
as the player.
He was a character guy. Anquan did get he did run angry. That's true. Physical. Sean Green, who, by the way, I hear plays a lot of golf in Southern California these days.
You see the tweet about all the scratch golfers against the LPGA girls that were kicking their ass?
No.
So they just had a pro-am, Derek Lowe, Carlton, Marty Fish, all the top, John Smoltz, every guy worth a shit, and Daniel Kang and Nelly Korda and all those girls.
Yeah.
Well, Korda and Kang both 13 under, 16 under. The same tees. The other guys were +8, +12, and part of it was golf. People that cover it were ever think that these guys could do this? This is a good example.
Yeah.
And Marty Fish, who I follow on Twitter, quoted it yeah, none of us thought we were better than these girls. We're not this wasn't a competition. We know. And part of it gets back to these guys aren't pros. These guys are former athletes that get really good at golf, and a huge part of their handicap being low is they play their home country club all the time.
Yeah.
They part of it, when I've played with the Rabers, these guys became scratch golfers in college, playing different tournaments. John Smoltz didn't get competitive in golf truly till he got into TV, right? His innate skills were pitching, and he learned growing up. When you learn growing up, if I put college golfers, I was flipping around and the NCAA has a tournament going on right now, and Arizona State's a powerhouse, and this Cole Hammer guy that's a Texas, sweet, and it's just those guys are so much better than and I think Marty Fish and John Smoltz would be the first to tell you, the top guy in college is he's been focusing on this since he was 8, right? It's not apples to apples. People make there's a reason Tony Romo gets dusted when he goes to Corn Ferries. He's just gotten good in his later ages. These pros, you meet a good college golfer, it's like knowing a good college basketball player. It's I've never played college basketball, but I've been playing pickup. I'm 40 years old for the last 20 years. When the college guy's dunks on you, it's yeah, it's a completely different world.
The intramural game that Montana's team won. You see the photo of those guys?
Oh my God.
Because I'm thinking intramural Notre Dame basketball, and then they're all 6'5".
Was it Montana's?
Montana won the dunk. He finished third in the dunk contest.
Did you see Magic was he was going did it?
No, I don't. Wait, Magic? I've only seen
is it
episode
Magic
1.
Magic's in the documentary talking
okay.
about his basketball, I think, if I remember correctly.
I haven't seen. I only saw episode 1. Magic was not in that.
I ran into Bill Romanowski recently, and I said, "Hey, have you seen the Joe Montana documentary?" He said, "No." And we started talking about him. I'm like, I didn't realize he was such a good athlete. And they used to have this 49ers versus, I think, the Cops thing growing up. It was a big deal in like Northern California. They would just play the Cops. And I think it was like a celebrity, that get fans and sell stuff.
Pete Carroll maybe used to play in that thing.
Maybe. And he said that Montana, when he got around him, and he was drafted in 88, so Montana would have been over 30. He's like, could do a 360 dunk with ease. Because I was like, the coolest part about the documentary is I don't think I understood what a great athlete Joe Montana was.
And like high school tape doesn't quite. They're like, oh, he was an elite athlete. And then they show the grainy high school tape, and it doesn't quite.
Do you have more respect for him after watching just the episode 1 than you haven't seen the pro stuff, like how good he was? Wait till you see how good he is with the Niners.
I'll watch that tonight.
But just how the guy's moving and running. He is. One takeaway I had. I actually think young Joe Montana is closer to Steve Young than anyone realizes. Steve probably was a faster athlete, but I think Joe was a remarkable athlete.
One of his plus traits was athleticism
and running, his feet. How about in college? Just him fucking running around.
Well, yeah, I did see some of that tape. Yeah. All right. Good show, everybody. Thanks for hanging. We'll be back live again, YouTube only on Wednesday. Getting our DraftKings golf game. There will be a DraftKings. Are we going to do a DraftKings football game Sunday only as well?
Four teams. I mean, doesn't matter to me.
All right. Well, let's get the golf game filled. Go get the golf game filled. Link in the description, whatever you're watching. Thanks for hanging, everybody. Adios, pelota, in honor of Big Papi. Not Barry. Tyreek.